Chapter 694. Tens of seconds earlier, Han Xiao was dragged into the deep and mysterious wormhole by God's doppelganger. The moment he entered, countless indescribable and distorted scenes assaulted his senses. The interior of the wormhole seemed to be blue, but was actually black. After entering, the two of them were pulled apart by the space turbulence and could not see each other. Without needing God's doppelganger to control him, the space turbulence vortex dragged the two of them along, confusing Han Xiao's senses. Sometimes he felt that he was moving forward, sometimes he felt that he was falling, and sometimes he felt that he was rising. For some reason, it felt like he was flushing a toilet. The internal screen of the mechanical suit showed that the space-time coefficient had become undetectable. The thrusters had also failed, and he could not move. His body was firmly sucked in, and the scenery around him changed rapidly. However, upon closer inspection, it became chaos again. At the end of the wormhole, there was a faint light, as if that was the exit. At this time, the square mechanical beacon that Han Xiao had placed in the groove of the mechanical suit started to operate. This was the Wormhole Pro beacon that Han Xiao had obtained from Herifel before fighting with God's doppelganger. Herifel had a deep understanding of wormholes. As he needed to collect various parameters of the wormhole, the collection team of the observation station had to get close to the wormhole from time to time. Occasionally, someone would be accidentally sucked in. After experimenting, Herifel had developed a device that could pull people out of wormholes. There were two prerequisites. One was to have the Wormhole Pro beacon with him, and the other was that the wormhole had been measured before. Han Xiao knew too well how strong God was. Even his doppelganger was just as strong. As soon as he saw the enemy, he knew that he would most likely not be his opponent in a head-on clash. He had never been arrogant and had always been confident. Therefore, after hearing about Herifel's ability, Han Xiao had a flash of inspiration and decided to use himself as bait to lure God's doppelganger into the wormhole before letting Herifel pull him out. The success rate of this method was clearly much higher than charging forward recklessly. Although he might not be able to trust Herifel, he could only take the risk. The worst outcome would be him going to a two-person world with God's doppelganger. As a mechanic, Han Xiao knew very well that compared to mechanics who were good at fighting, those who were good at scientific research were often more effective. As the cause and effect flashed through his mind, Han Xiao heaved a sigh of relief as he understood the enemy's plan. The Dark Star leader wanted to use the wormhole to banish him, and in turn, using the wormhole as a battlefield could be considered an advantage for him. He had banished the God doppelganger instead. Fortunately, we have Herifel. Otherwise, we would have been in danger. Han Xiao glanced at Herifel beside him and mumbled to himself, "That's right." At this time, the Dark Star leader who was dumbstruck in the distance came back to his senses. Without saying anything, he turned around and fled. His face was filled with shock and anger, and his expression was twisted. He had just been immersed in the mission and imagining the future, but in less than a minute, his fantasy was mercilessly shattered by reality. Black Star had actually escaped from the wormhole, but the God doppelganger had not returned. He was completely stunned. The feeling of falling short of success almost made him lose his mind, but in the next moment, boundless fear drowned out this emotion, causing his soul to tremble. Without the help of the God doppelganger, Black Star will definitely kill me. The Dark Star leader did not dare stay any longer and fled in panic. There was only one thought left in his mind. I can't die yet. The hybrid Ghidorah needs me. However, the Mech Legion on standby fell into Han Xiao's control again and followed him like a nightmare. Millions of mechanical soldiers were like a wave of steel. These emotionless mechanical dead creatures seemed to have become ferocious and evil pure-blooded Ghidorah in the eyes of the Dark Star leader. The Mech Legion with mechanical force bonuses surrounded a Calamity Grade who was not good at group battles. There was no suspense in the battle. Han Xiao only needed to rely on the Mech Legion to take him down easily. After losing the God doppelganger, the Dark Star leader no longer had any trump cards. In order not to alert the enemy, he only brought a small fleet with him. The rest of the troops that he had obtained from the Fallen Ark were stored in the hands of Clint. Two Oathkeepers dragged the dying Darkstar leader to Han Shao. The effects of a chain of pain and other spells had long been interrupted, and Han Shao sized up the Darkstar leader. I thought you had already left the Shattered Star Ring. I didn't expect you to dare come back. You escaped a few years ago, but I finally caught you this time. Han Shao tilted his head, and the armor on his left shoulder slid open, revealing a ring device that emitted a blue light. It vibrated slightly and released a circle of air. Like a bubble, the air did not dissipate and enveloped the three of them, allowing them to speak directly. The Darkstar leader did not say a word. His face was ashen, and his eyes had lost all light, leaving only defeat and despair. The mountain ape's helmet folded up, and the ring armor on his neck retracted, revealing Han Zhao's face. He sized up the Darkstar leader with interest. You can actually summon the ES God Doppelganger. It seems like you formed a relationship with the fallen Arkansas. It should be something that happened during the years you were on the run. Let me think. Since you were able to attack me today, it means that you have a very powerful intelligence channel that can lock onto my whereabouts. This time, I was on a secret operation and did not stop at any other planets. This means that the intelligence channel behind you is already monitoring me before I left Colton. Furthermore, they knew that I would come to this wormhole observatory. It seems like they know me very well. Han Shao scratched his head. Only the people from Clint like to tell me so much. They're probably the instigators of this operation. The Darkstar leader still did not say a word. His eyes were blank, as if he was immersed in his own world. It was as if he did not hear Han Shao at all. Han Shao pushed the Darkstar leader's head, but the other party did not react. He did not even look at Han Shao. It was as if his eyes had no focus, and his eyes did not move at all. Why aren't you saying anything? Do you think I won't mess with you just because you're like an ostrich? Hereful heard this from the side and could not help but cough. He softly said, Do I need to avoid suspicion? No, you can be my witness. After casually replying, Han Shao turned around to look at the Darkstar leader and frowned. Strange. I only beat him up and did not do anything else. Why does it seem like I've played with him until he's broken? Han Shao did not know that the Darkstar leader had fallen into the hands of Black Star. He felt that everything was over, so he did not want to say anything and was at the mercy of Black Star. No way. You're breaking down just like that? Han Shao stared at the Darkstar leader's eyes, curled his lips, and said, You're too weak mentally. You're the leader of a galactic terrorist organization. Even a native leader of a rebel organization in my hometown has more backbone than you. You're so weak. Han Shao thought for a while, summoned two phantoms, and transformed them into layers of seals, locking the Darkstar leader in place. He then took out the juicer and extracted a dozen tubes of gene serums. When he saw the super gene extractor, the Darkstar leader's eyes finally moved. The secret message bead is indeed in your hands. Yeah. Han Shao remembered that the first time he interacted with the Darkstar was because of the mission of the secret message bead. By the way, where did Ashes go? He's dead. The Darkstar leader lowered his head. Oh, that's good. Han Shao raised his brows. It seemed like the result of the Destiny's Child character summon card was correct. He was not interested in how Ashes died at all. In fact, when he saw ES God's doppelganger, he already knew what was going on. Capturing the Darkstar leader was a pleasant surprise of this trip, and Han Shao felt that he had gained a lot. Clint was most likely the backer of Darkstar, and they actually had something to do with ES God. This made him feel that he had to be more careful. The role of the Darkstar leader was not only to juice her, but also to hand this war criminal over to Ghidorah. This should be able to trigger legendary points and dungeon creation rights, representing the complete destruction of the Darkstar organization. Ghidorah would definitely publicize this, and it might even help with the Bloodline mission. However, Han Shao was not satisfied with just the benefits of a star system civilization. With his current level, a star cluster civilization was a more suitable partner. Since he had discovered the connection between Darkstar and Clint, he felt that he could make an issue out of it, and Purple Crystal would definitely be willing to publicize this. The use was also very obvious. Clint's previous experience of funding terrorist organizations and disrupting star systems was enough to make the West Wind Kaya, and Chida star systems increased their vigilance against Clint. This could indirectly restore Purple Crystal's control over these three border star systems and reduce the effect of Bloodshed Land's work. Furthermore, the Lord of the Fallen Ark was notorious in the entire universe and was a thug that the three universal civilizations hated the most. Once the relationship between Clint and ES God was exposed, political pressure would come one after another. The Red Empire might even be dissatisfied with Clint, their new underling. Not to mention the external pressure from Clint, there was also the possibility of a harem fire. Their ally, Heber, might not necessarily want to share a husband with ES God. Of course, it was also possible that he had guessed wrong, and Clint was actually not the mastermind behind Darkstar. However, it did not matter. The Darkstar leader was in his hands. If he said he was the mastermind, he would be the mastermind. Han Xiao was determined to give Clint benefits. Another pot. Putting away all the potions, Han Xiao flipped his palm, and a compressed orb popped out from the mechanical suit's tube. With a little stimulation from his mechanical force, this compressed orb expanded layer by layer and quickly turned into a single-person aircraft about 10 meters long. The small standard spaceship that they were originally on had been destroyed. Although they could leave with the Mountain Ape mode, it was not convenient for them to bring captives. Thus, they could only take out a single-person aircraft and leave the wormhole area first. Professor Hariful, I'll send you to the nearest planet first. Sure. Han Xiao put away the Mech Legion and brought the two of them onto the spaceship. He asked Hariful to help guard the Darkstar leader while he sat in the pilot's seat. At this time, Han Xiao seemed to have thought of something and asked, "Oh, right? Where does the wormhole that I fell into lead to?" ES God's doppelganger did not escape. So where will he be teleported to? Hariful shook his head. The other end of that wormhole is not fixed. We've measured the data, and the other end of this wormhole is changing all the time. I don't know where that guy will fall to either. However, according to probability, it's more likely that he will fall to the unexplored universe. After all, that wormhole is very big, and the energy fluctuations are very intense. Is that so? Han Xiao scratched the back of his head. ES God's doppelganger had energy limitations and would dissipate after a while. As long as he did not fall into a busy area, he would be very safe. Dark blue flames shot out from the tail of the aircraft, and it slowly accelerated, gradually turning into a stream of light and disappearing from this wormhole area. Somewhere in the unexplored universe, a wormhole was spinning quietly. Suddenly, a human figure flew out from the wormhole. It was ES God's doppelganger. After stabilizing himself, ES God's doppelganger stood at the entrance of the wormhole and waited for a long time, but he did not see his friend, Black Star, coming to meet him. The red light spots on ES God's doppelganger's face shone brightly, vaguely emitting the resentment of being stood up. The doppelganger and the main body had a mental connection. The main body could see the doppelganger's actions, control the doppelganger, and also be a bystander. ES God had always liked to be a bystander and let his doppelganger do what he wanted. To him, it was like watching a first-person movie. Because he had this ability, he liked to play with wormholes and leave the fate of his doppelganger to fate. ES God's main body was still a bystander when he attacked Black Star this time, watching his doppelganger do what he wanted. He actually did not care about Clint's request. Seeing that Black Star did not seem to be affected, ES God was a little curious. He remembered this person and then threw the mission to the back of his mind to see where his doppelganger was thrown to this time. ES God's doppelganger looked left and right, randomly choosing a direction, and started to teleport continuously over long distances. The consumption of teleportation was very small, but it lasted for a very long time. A lot of energy was consumed in the doppelganger's body, and the red light spots dimmed. At this time, ES God's doppelganger finally saw a planet. It was a strange planet. Looking from afar, the surface of the planet was green and full of life, as if there were no traces of artificial modification. However, ES God's doppelganger's detection Esper ability also sensed countless highly intelligent life forms living on the surface. The most special thing was that thick vines grew on the surface of this planet, extending all the way to the atmosphere and into outer space. The ends of these vines were connected to stable wormholes. God's doppelganger took a closer look and suddenly realized that he seemed to have seen it the wrong way. It was not that there were vines growing on the planet, but that these vines were extending from the wormholes in outer space of the planet, connecting to the surface of the planet. This meant that these vines did not grow from the ground, but from the wormholes. The surface of the planet was the end of these vines. All kinds of lights were born from the ends of the vines on the surface of the planet and flowed into the wormholes through the vines. It was as if these vines were nutrient pipes, absorbing the energy of this planet. Seeing this scene through his doppelganger, God's main body, who was sitting on the throne in the palace of the fallen Ark, opened his eyes. Chapter 695. Soul Cluster, Clint Kingdom, a certain military planet. On the surface, this was a military fortress planet used to maintain fleets and produce battleships. But in reality, this was the headquarters of Clint's Secret Strategy Department. The Secret Strategy Department was Clint's secret organization that carried out missions that could not be exposed. Funding Darkstar and contacting the Fallen Ark were the jobs of the Secret Strategy Department. The Secret Strategy Department had extremely high security clearance. The internal members of the organization could only be responsible for their own missions and could not access the information of other operations from the database. The garrison on this planet was not only a disguise, but also a means to prevent the members of the Secret Strategy Department from betraying and leaking information. The secret war was fully managed by the Bloodshed Land and did not take orders from Clint. Although Clint did not directly interfere in the war on the surface, in private, they carried out some secret operations behind the backs of the Bloodshed Land and influenced the secret war through the Secret Strategy Department. Sending the Darkstar leader and God's doppelganger to exile Blackstar was an operation led by the Secret Strategy Department, and they thought it was a sure thing. However, when they received news that the Darkstar leader had gone missing, they were shocked and regretted it. They urgently called for a meeting to discuss how to deal with it. If the banishment operation fails, the worst-case scenario is that Darkstar will fall into Blackstar's hands and expose our relationship with them. We have to eliminate all traces of our relationship with Darkstar immediately. Blackstar might not be able to see the truth. We've already instructed the people of Darkstar that no matter what the circumstances are, they have to bear all the responsibility. Everything was done on his own accord, and no one ordered him to do so. He will not expose Clint. He knows the consequences. We can't be lucky. We have to be prepared for the worst. Blackstar is very cautious and suspicious. He'll definitely have doubts about Darkstar and God's doppelganger and connect it to us. Furthermore, it's not the first time he's framed us. Even if the Darkstar guy doesn't say anything, he can still make up a statement to frame us. I know him too well. Yes, Blackstar is very likely to do so. He has no integrity and is a dangerous person who will do anything. We must make the people in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs insist that this is slander. We must never admit that we have a working relationship with Darkstar and the Fallen Arkansas. This is a complete fabrication. We must never admit it. At this time, a member added, there's another thing. Temporarily stop all plans to assassinate Blackstar. The success rate is too low. Even God's doppelganger couldn't finish him off. If no beyond grade A super personally acts, I'm afraid we won't be able to finish off Blackstar. Furthermore, after this battle, Blackstar will definitely be more vigilant, so there won't be another chance. Everyone quickly finalized the report and submitted it to the higher-ups. This attack plan was not worth the losses, and there was no point in regretting it. They could only do their best to salvage the situation and reduce the losses. Who knew that even God could not deal with Blackstar? Godora civilization's mother planet government building. The supreme leader, Serbia V, was working at his desk, reviewing documents one after another. This time, his private communicator received a call request and vibrated. Serbia V glanced at it, and his eyes sparkled. It was a call from Blackstar. His private communicator was a highly encrypted and locked line. Only very important people could contact him directly, and Han Shao was one of them. Your Excellency Blackstar, what's the matter? Serbia V went straight to the point. He was very busy every day, so he did not think that Black Star was calling just to chat with him. I've caught the Dark Star leader who escaped and am preparing to hand him over to you. However, I need to meet you personally, Han Shao said. Serbia V was stunned for a moment before standing up. You caught him? The escaped Dark Star leader had always been his worry. He was worried every day that Dark Star would make a comeback. He did not expect Han Shao to suddenly give him such a huge surprise. More than 10 days later, Han Shao drove the spaceship back to the Black Star headquarters in the Garden Star system. Herifel left halfway to report on the situation at the observatory. At this time, the large dock of the Black Star headquarters was filled with people. Serbia V had been waiting with his guards for a long time. Beside him was the emissary of the Amethyst civilization. Around them were countless galactic media reporters who were blocked by the guards, taking pictures nonstop. Even further away were the mercenaries who had heard the news and came to watch the show. Many reporters were whispering to each other. Purple Crystal and Ghidorah are welcoming Black Star together. What does this mean? Why did the higher-ups ask us to come and report? Is there some big news? Who knows? I heard that this is an invitation from Purple Crystal. Although they did not say the reason, who would dare to reject it? There must be something to announce. We will not come here for nothing. The galactic reporters present were all invited and did not know what they were going to report. However, with Purple Crystal's name, no one dared to reject it. Furthermore, the location was at the headquarters of the Black Star Corps. Everyone felt that once Black Star was involved, it would definitely be big news worth reporting. Therefore, although they were kept in the dark, their enthusiasm was very high, and they were secretly curious about what the news was. It was Han Zhao's request to gather the reporters. He was prepared to make the handover of the Dark Star leader into sensational news to increase his influence. After contacting Ghidorah, he also contacted Purple Crystal. Purple Crystal was shocked by the news of God's doppelganger. Seeing that Han Shao was fine, they were relieved. After knowing what Han Shao meant, Purple Crystal immediately agreed. They fully supported any plan to deal with Clint. Therefore, they took the initiative to invite the various galactic media to watch the handover ceremony of the Dark Star leader. However, they did not reveal it beforehand. Han Shao parked the spaceship at the dock. Everyone's eyes were focused on him, and they subconsciously held their breaths. It was as if they had pressed the freeze button, and the place became silent. Under everyone's gazes, the hatch opened, and Han Shao walked out. Only then did the clamor start again. Serbia V and the emissary of the Amethyst civilization quickly walked up and talked to Han Shao. The galactic reporters started to record the whole process. Brock mixed in the crowd and looked at Serbia V from time to time. As a spy of Dark Star, he did not have a good impression of the current highest leader of Ghidorah. He suppressed his hatred and did not want others to find out. Han Shao chatted with Serbia V for a while. He glanced at the galactic reporters around him, smiled, and said, "Let's get down to business first." He turned around and looked at the hatch. Two Oath Keepers appeared with the dejected Dark Star leader. Everyone's eyes instantly fell on the Dark Star leader. Confusion, shock, and other emotions appeared in their eyes. Many people did not know the Dark Star leader. This time, Serbia V opened his mouth and announced loudly, "This person is the Dark Star leader who has been on the run. Ghidorah has put in a lot of effort, but we have not been able to catch this culprit. This time, thanks to His Excellency Black Star's help, we have captured this criminal. I thank you on behalf of Ghidorah for your help." Then he bowed slightly to Han Shao. As the highest leader of a civilization, he expressed his gratitude to Han Shao on behalf of the entire civilization. This instantly shocked the crowd and caused an uproar. That's the Dark Star leader? So they are handing over this criminal today. No wonder we are here to report. Ghidorah's leader actually came personally to hand over the handover. The Black Star Corps is so ostentatious. Serbia V continued, "The Dark Star organization has been a scourge on Ghidorah for a long time. Countless citizens have lost their lives because of it. We will publicly judge this vicious criminal and give justice to all Ghidorah citizens. I declare that the Dark Star organization is destroyed." Some of the Godora people in the crowd could not help but cheer when they heard this. Brock, on the other hand, was stunned. He stared blankly at the dispirited Dark Star leader. His legs turned to jelly, and he almost knelt on the ground. His whole body trembled, and he could not believe what he was seeing. He had been silently waiting for the Dark Star leader to contact him, waiting to persuade the leader not to deal with Black Star. However, he did not expect the leader, who had disappeared for a few years, to appear for the first time and become a captive of Black Star. Then, what's the point of me hiding in the Black Star Corps? All my work has been for nothing. It was as if Brock was struck by lightning. His mind was in a mess, and he was completely stunned. All the galactic reporters were energized. Ghodora's highest leader had personally announced the complete destruction of the Dark Star organization, which meant that Ghodora had finally eradicated its archenemy. This was indeed a big news. However, they did not expect that this was just an appetizer. The more shocking part was yet to come. It was not an accident that I met the Dark Star leader this time. Everyone, please take a look. Han Shao opened his mouth, and the nanoparticles turned into a small floating ball in his palm, forming a projection in the air. Everyone looked over. It was the recording of the battle between Han Shao and the Dark Star leader. The mechanical suit's tactical analyzer recorded the battle process. Han Shao felt that the effect of the video was better than words, so he played the recording directly. Everyone looked shocked when they saw the Dark Star leader summon the ES God doppelganger. This time, Han Shao added, "According to the data, the person the Dark Star leader summoned is the doppelganger of the Lord of Fallen Arkansas, the Fallen Ark." Every star field knew of the notoriety of this organization. Dark Star was actually related to this infamous organization. Everyone was shocked. The reporters suddenly realized this and looked at Han Shao with dazed expressions. Black Star was assassinated, but he was standing there perfectly fine. Did this not mean that Black Star could survive in the hands of a Beyond Grade A? After understanding this, the entire place became so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Countless shocked gazes focused on Han Shao. Although Han Zhao's reputation as a Beyond Grade A seed had been circulating in the Shattered Star Ring for the past few years, everyone knew that he was not a true Beyond Grade A, and there was a huge gap between him and the Tyrant, Dragon Emperor, and other Beyond Grade As. The various organizations only acknowledged Black Star's dominance in the Calamity Grade and his future potential. No one felt that Black Star could be compared to these true Beyond Grade As. However, Han Shao had released a video of him fighting a Beyond Grade A, and he had even survived. The reporters present trembled in excitement and hurriedly recorded the video Han Shao released. The eyes of the Black Star members who had come to join in the fun also sparkled. The stronger their leader was, the brighter their future would be. Han Shao did not release the entire video, leaving out the wormhole at the end. He also edited out a portion of it and did not reveal any of his key abilities. However, this was enough to increase his reputation. Seeing the excitement on the faces of the reporters, Han Xiaoxi knew that he had to strike while the iron was hot, so he gave the purple crystal emissary a look. The purple crystal emissary understood, stepped forward, and said loudly, "According to our investigation, we discovered that the Dark Star leader did not act alone. There was someone behind him. After our investigation, we discovered that Clint had secret dealings with Dark Star a long time ago. We suspect that Clint might be secretly supporting Dark Star's actions and disrupting the security of the Colton Star Cluster. Therefore, on behalf of Purple Crystal, I announce that we will be joining forces with Ghodora to interrogate the Dark Star leader." As soon as this was said, the entire place was in an uproar. The galactic reporters present were no longer excited, but completely stunned. This last piece of news was much more explosive than the previous two. If what Purple Crystal said was true, it meant that Clint had always been funding Dark Star to destroy civilizations. Furthermore, the suspicion of being connected to the Fallen Ark would naturally fall on Clint. This was a taboo for the three universal civilizations. The capture of the Dark Star leader actually involved such a huge inside story. At this moment, these reporters knew that this report would definitely cause a sensation in the entire star field. Chapter 696. The news was getting more and more sensational, and many galactic reporters were stunned. Han Xiao smiled upon seeing this. He had achieved his goal. Using the Dark Star leader to gain a wave of faction contribution points, using the new battle results to gain a wave of reputation, and then pushing the blame to Clint. No, this time, it was most likely real. Glancing at the shocked reporters, Han Xiao nodded to himself. With these channels, the shocking news will probably be released in less than an hour. Han Xiao, Ghidorah, and Purple Crystal finished announcing the news and got down to business. Han Xiao officially handed over the Dark Star leader to Serbia the Fifth's men, and a series of notifications appeared on his interface. His favorability with Ghidorah was already through the roof. The Golden Gal badge from a few years ago had solidified his relationship with Ghidorah to reverence, and it could not go any higher. On the other hand, Serbia the Fifth's favorability with him went straight to the limit of 100. Han Xiao could feel that Serbia the Fifth was looking at him with admiration, trust, and love, as if he was saying with his eyes, "Quickly build a strong bond with me, brother." Just as Han Xiao had expected, he also gained some legendary points. However, it was not a new legendary point, but an old one. Originally, Destroyer of Dark Star was only a star system legendary point. Now that it had been upgraded to Star Cluster legendary point, the percentage of rewards for various missions had increased greatly. The reward quota had always been very important. This was the function of the NPC template. It did not consume their own experience and used the quota to provide missions to the players. Han Xiao had always used the players as a middleman and used the reward quota to fertilize the players every day. He then used various methods to earn back the reward quota that he could not use to increase his harvest. However, in version 2.0, Han Xiao's faction reward quota was not enough. At that time, the size of the Black Star Corps had not reached 1 million, and their territory was basically limited to Ghidorah's territory. However, things were different now. It had only been 3 years since the update, and the Black Star Corps had expanded by hundreds of times. Han Xiao's faction reward quota had also skyrocketed. Now, it was countless times more than what it was in version 2.0. If the Black Star Corps continued to grow until version 3.0, not to mention 1 million players, he could even feed 3 million players. Coincidentally, version 3.0 was also the period when the number of players in his previous life exploded. Han Xiao had always felt that the reward quota was also an overall evaluation of oneself. The higher one's strength and influence, the higher the reward quota. It was like an indirect evaluation of one's influence. The handover ceremony was brief. Han Xiao invited Serbia the Fifth for a private meeting. The two of them left the dock, and the press conference came to an end. The galactic reporters were very satisfied with the results and felt that the trip was worthwhile. The crowd also dispersed. Brock was in a daze. He followed the flow of people and walked aimlessly like a zombie. The Dark Star leader was the last hope of the organization. Seeing that the leader had been captured, Brock knew that the organization had been completely destroyed. He was suddenly at a loss. The hidden sense of mission for the rise of the Dark Star was the direction of his life and the motivation for him to work hard. However, now that the organization that he had fought for was destroyed, Brock did not know what to do in the future. He had lost his goal. Maybe the mission of the leader should be inherited by me. The future of the hybrid Ghidorah should be taken care of by me. Brock's heart suddenly burned. He felt as if he had found his goal in life. His numb eyes gradually regained their luster. A determined look appeared on Brock's face. Yes, I'm the last Dark Star. As long as I'm still here. Then, before he could regain his faith, Haluz walked over and saw Brock. He knew this employee who had been praised by the entire army. He said, "Brock, the army is going to promote a batch of newbies. Arrange a large-scale test for the training camp as soon as possible. The reserve members who pass can all become regular members." Understood. Before Brock's brain could process what was going on, his body instinctively stood up straight and listened to the order. After Haluz left, Brock fell from his beautiful imagination back to the cold reality. His back, which had just straightened for a few seconds, collapsed again. He gave off the aura of a dead heart. Inheriting the mission of Darkstar was not bad, but Godora was no longer what it used to be. It had the protection of the Black Star Core. Once he thought of this, Brock's lofty ambitions instantly vanished. Sai, what's the point of changing my life? I'm probably tired of living. Anyway, I'm already in the shape of Black Star. I'll just work honestly. It's not that I don't want to be frivolous, but life has smoothed out my edges. Maybe all of this is fate's choice. Brock sighed and made up his mind to accept his fate. In a private meeting room, Han Shao and Serbia V sat opposite each other. Your Excellency Black Star, you've really given me a surprise. Without a leader, Darkstar is completely gone, and the conflicts between purebloods and hybrids in the country can be lessened. At least no one will try to sow discord anymore. Serbia V's tone was sincere and respectful. Now that Han Zhao's position in the Shattered Star Ring was different from before, he did not dare to be casual. Han Shao nodded. I've gotten rid of a huge problem for you. I have a small request. I hope that during the trial, you'll try your best to cooperate with Purple Crystal. This is a good opportunity to deal a political blow to Clint. Although the secret war has nothing to do with you, I still hope that you can cooperate. Of course, this is what we should do. Serbia V had a dutiful expression. Even if Han Shao did not ask, he would have cooperated. After all, Purple Crystal was the leader of the star cluster that they had to curry favor with. There's actually something more important that I'm looking for you for this time. Han Shao stroked his chin. The news of Darkstar's destruction can lessen the internal conflicts among Godora people, but it can't solve the root of the problem. The conflicts between purebloods and hybrids will not be eliminated because of this. In the future, there will still be extremists who will inherit Darkstar's legacy and rebel against you. Serbia V sighed. I know, but the superiority of bloodline is more difficult to eradicate than the system. This is a tradition that has been passed down for countless years. There have been so many former leaders in history, but no one can solve this problem. They can only slow it down, but they can't cure it completely. That might not be the case. Han Zhao's lips curled up. I have an idea that might be able to further weaken the bloodline conflicts. Are you interested? You have an idea? Serbia V hesitated. Of course I'm interested, but this is not a problem that can be solved by human strength. I recently made a friend. Her name is Rosalind. Han Shao described Rosalind's experience and ability. Although he did not say it directly, Serbia V already understood what Han Shao was trying to say. He wanted to use Rosalind's ability to brainwash Godora people and change their beliefs. Rosalind was an extremely useful tool to deal with deep-rooted traditions. Serbia V opened his mouth wide and looked at Han Shao in shock. He could not believe that his suggestion was so bold. This was telling the leader of a civilization that he wanted to brainwash their entire civilization. You bastard, aren't you too polite? As the highest leader, this kind of excessive request was almost unthinkable. Serbia V opened his mouth and was about to reject it, but he suddenly thought of something. He frowned and closed his mouth. While brainwashing an entire civilization was extremely sensitive, it seemed to be able to quickly resolve the deep-rooted bloodline conflict. Serbia V was both tempted and repulsed. According to the normal method, the bloodline conflict might never be resolved, but with such an unconventional method, the moment something went wrong, it would be an earth-shattering event that involved all Godorans. If someone else had made this request, Serbia V would have rejected it without hesitation. However, the person who made this request was the deeply trusted Black Star. Therefore, Serbia V did not reject it immediately. Instead, he fell into a dilemma. This is too risky. You don't trust me? Han Shao raised his eyebrows. How about this? We can apply for a private notarization from the Amethyst civilization. This will prevent me from having any other intentions. But can you ensure that Rosalind won't do anything rash? Based on my understanding of her, she won't do anything like that. Han Shao shook his head. Bloodline was the only S-grade mission in the interface. Originally, he did not have many clues, but now that he had Rosalind, it was equivalent to finding a way to clear the mission. It was worth a try. It was necessary to discuss with Serbia V directly. Otherwise, The consequences of brainwashing a star system civilization protected by the peace treaty would be unimaginable. Han Shao did not need this mission, so he would only carry out this plan with the approval of the government. Furthermore, brainwashing openly would be much more efficient than doing it secretly. Seeing that Serbia V was still hesitating, Han Shao rolled his eyes and said, "I know what you're worried about. As the leader of a civilization, you want to help an outsider brainwash your own people. Even if your goal is good, this behavior is very sensitive and violates your duty. However, you don't have to use forced brainwashing. You can give the Godora people the right to choose." Serbia V fell into deep thought. Indeed, this was what he was worried about. You can announce this to all the people directly. Of course, you can't use the word brainwashing. You have to find a better excuse, such as instilling the belief that everyone is equal. Emphasize that it's to solve the bloodline conflict and downplay the possible bad results. Then, introduce all kinds of related welfare systems, such as new privileges for those who accept the brainwashing, more taxes for those who don't accept the brainwashing, or turning the bloodline conflict into a new class conflict. Use public opinion to claim that those who don't accept the brainwashing are stubborn and backward people. You can even replan the colonial planets and force those who don't accept the brainwashing to live together, build spiritual ghettos, and so on. Anyway, there are many ways. You're a professional leader, and you know how to play better than me. You can think about it yourself. Han Zhao's persuasion was like the devil's bewitchment to Serbia V, but he just could not make up his mind to refuse. This man's suggestion was so damn sweet. Serbia V could be like his predecessors and not deal with the conflict of bloodlines. No one would say anything if he didn't want to make any contributions. However, he also saw an opportunity because of this. Once he accomplished what countless predecessors had failed to do, he would become one of the most brilliant leaders in history. This was an unprecedented achievement. Serbia V gritted his teeth. I'll go back and think about it. This is too important. I can't make a decision now. You should. Han Shao smiled, but did not say anything. He did not intend to persuade Serbia V all at once. Even if Serbia V's selfishness was triggered, he would not dare mess around with the entire civilization. He would definitely go back and gather the think tanks for brainstorming. Without careful consideration, he would definitely not agree to it. After sending away the conflicted Serbia V, Han Shao did not rest, but rushed to the machinery modification room and started building machines behind closed doors. After working so long for the Silver Legacy blueprint, I can finally reap the rewards. Chapter 697. In the machinery modification workshop, the semi-finished frame of the Ice Age star freezing cannon was 2 stories tall. Accompanied by the sound of mechanical force and the sound of mechanical parts being assembled, the giant cannon was slowly taking shape. Dozens of construction robotic arms moved up and down, perfecting the structure and assembling the parts. 2 sets of watcher instruments flew around the giant cannon, welding and fitting it together. Electric sparks flew everywhere. A torrent of nanomachines moved around the giant cannon frame, fixing the details of the circuits and energy transmission pipes. The blue mechanical force connected these machines, and under Han Zhao's control, the Ice Age star freezing cannon was built. Han Shao stood below the Ice Age star freezing cannon and continuously adjusted his mechanical force, carefully polishing this giant cannon. In order to create orange equipment, he was fully focused and had activated Reynolds' character summon card long ago, enjoying the bonus of perfect mechanical sense. The effect of perfect mechanical sense was extremely obvious. The strength, control, and range of his mechanical force all increased by a large margin, and his mechanical force became more sensitive. This gave him a deeper understanding of the perfect mechanical sense. Other than the talent bonus on the surface, perfect mechanical sense also had a hidden effect, which was the remark, in your senses, every machine is a world of ecological balance. The so-called mechanical sense was not only an understanding of machines, but also a new sense, giving him a new understanding of machines. It was as if machines were no longer inanimate objects, and his mechanical force flowed through the structure of the machines like he was touching the body of a beautiful woman. Han Zhao's perception of machines was magnified countless times, and he could easily see the details that were originally difficult to see. This hidden effect was related to the bonus of the talent. Only with this kind of mechanical sense would the bonus effect of the talent appear, and the players would not be able to experience the actual feeling of this mechanical sense. It was no wonder that those who had this talent were mechanic-class geniuses. Perfect mechanical sense was simply a pleasure. Han Xiaoxin was extremely excited. Be it building machines or fighting, perfect mechanical sense would be extremely useful. It was a godly skill of the mechanic class, and if he could obtain this talent, it would bring him a complete transformation. It was a pity that he could only temporarily enjoy perfect mechanical sense through the effect of the character summon card. I have to find a way to obtain Reynolds' talent in the future. Han Xiao exhaled, put away his thoughts, and focused on building machines. With the bonus of perfect mechanical sense, the manufacturing process was extremely smooth, and it only took him a day to complete. The Ice Age Star Freezing Cannon was a legacy orange equipment, and its power was comparable to that of a Star Destroyer cannon. This was currently the highest quality mechanical creation in Han Zhao's hands, and it was also the weapon with the greatest destructive power. The 2-story tall, giant cannon shrank and folded into a compressed orb. Its appearance was blue and white, and under the guidance of mechanical force, it slowly floated in Han Zhao's palm. Han Xiao held the compressed orb, and an item introduction popped up on the interface. Ice Age Star Freezing Cannon, Legacy, Quality, Orange/Silver Type, Star Annihilation Weapon Requirement, LV, 180, Mechanic, Energy greater than 25,000, INT greater than 2,500 basic stats, Attack 14,500 to 48,300, Armor points, Energy output level, 12170, Energy Furnace Force Cooldown, 360 S Power. Minimum power consumption per shot is 3,000 energy. Maximum power consumption per shot is 12,000 energy. Energy source, psionic reactor, energy recovery, 25/S additional ability, extreme frost. Deals an additional 50% frost damage. Additional ability, psionic frost. Psionic energy can be converted into any form of energy, turning it into extremely cold energy. High chance of freezing the target. 80% chance of freezing the target in the core area, 60% chance of freezing the other areas. Additional ability, expansion explosion. After hitting the target, a second explosion will occur, forming a shockwave and a mushroom cloud. A second damage assessment will be made. Attack power will be 75% of the first round, plus 350% killing range. Additional ability, reactor output. Can change the attack mode into a continuous output mode. Based on the power output, the continuous output will be 60-240/S. 2 damage assessments will be made every second. Attack power will be 8% of the first round damage. The direction of the attack can be adjusted during the continuous output. Special ability, Cold Wind. When the power of one shot exceeds 6,000, the environment within a 50-kilometer radius will be changed. The temperature of the area will drop to -50 degrees Celsius, resulting in a drastic climate change. Special ability, Glacier. When the highest power output is used, the environment within a 200-kilometer radius will be changed. The area will be frozen, forming a glacier. The temperature of the area will drop below -100 degrees Celsius, resulting in a drastic climate change. Special ability, Frozen Star. When the power output exceeds 6,000 and reactor output is used, the continuous output will be more than 90 seconds. This effect will trigger a climate chain reaction, causing the surface of a planet to enter an ice age within a month, destroying all life on the surface. Remarks: the ice elemental life form is very happy and is trying to mate with you. Legacy: according to investigations, if you cool a star, You can indirectly destroy the civilizations of all planets in the orbit of the star. Peter Ferrodinerite, a total of 7 additional effects. Orange equipment is really good. The last frozen star effect will probably only appear on orange equipment. Han Xiao had a satisfied look on his face. The Ice Age star freezing cannon was very powerful, and its basic attack was enhanced by mechanical force. In theory, its damage could even reach hundreds of thousands. Normally, such giant cannons would be set up in outer space to carry out space-based attacks, so it was not easy for them to receive mechanical force bonuses. However, because he had absorbed the void energy when he evolved into a void distorter, his mechanical force had the void attribute. This way, he could use the void dimension to cross a distance and release mechanical force to reduce the effect of distance. This was Han Zhao's first planet destroyer weapon, and it could be said to be his trump card. He looked at the interface, and the class advancement mission was completed. I can finally complete the class advancement. Taking a deep breath, Han Xiao began the class advancement with a solemn expression. Prerequisites for class change completed. You have received a new class, Apostle Mechanic. Plus 240 energy, plus 3 STR, plus 4 DX, plus 5 END, plus 10 INT. You have received 8 free attribute points and 1 potential point. The moment the class advancement was completed, a large amount of knowledge appeared in his mind. Han Xiao had a new understanding of machinery, and his body underwent a wonderful change. A large number of notifications popped up on the interface. You have received the talent, Mechanical Force Ascension, Apostle Body. You have learned the ability, Apostle Grade Machinery Affinity. You have learned the ability, Machinery Apostolization. All of your virtual technology type abilities and talents have been increased by 20%. Han Xiao spent quite a while to digest the various abilities after the class advancement. Feeling the new power surging in his body, he was overjoyed. I've finally arrived at this watershed, Han Xiao thought to himself. Apostle Mechanic was the turning point of the high-grade mechanic class. As the saying went, the end of technology was theology. The reason why the term apostle had such a theological meaning was that from this point onwards, mechanics would gradually walk the path of theology in the eyes of ordinary people. The knowledge they learned would not change, but the methods they used would be improved. With new understanding and new technology, their methods would be like miracles in the eyes of ordinary people. The level cap of Apostle Mechanic was 30, 5 levels higher than Truth Mechanic. Normally, the increase in the level cap also meant that they had entered a new stage. Different from all the other mechanic classes before this, Apostle Mechanics began to gather great power in themselves, becoming extremely powerful in all aspects. Apostle Grade Machinery Affinity was the core ability of the mechanic class, and each generation was stronger than the last. Han Xiao directly leveled it up to the maximum level, and the effect was plus 105% Machinery Affinity, which was 30% more than Master Grade Machinery Affinity. The talent, Mechanical Force Ascension, Apostle Body, and the ability, Machinery Apostolization, were a set of abilities. Machinery Apostolization allowed him to absorb the energy of machinery through the connection of mechanical force, turning it into various attributes and adding them to himself. All along, machinery had been an external existence, and apostolization started to turn the energy of external objects into his own power. It was like how mages prayed to the gods to receive blessings, and mechanics worshipped machinery as their god, becoming the apostle of machinery and receiving gifts from machinery. The actual effect was easy to understand. For example, apostolization on mechanical suit would turn the energy of the mechanical suit into his own energy, increasing his own energy rank, gaining dozens of yin, strength, and dexterity bonuses, as well as some of the effects of machinery. At the same time, he could use the energy furnace of the mechanical suit to release his own energy. Even without wearing the mechanical suit, he would be able to release psionic energy. Any machinery could be apostolized, and it was not limited to mechanical suits. Different machinery provided different bonuses, and apostolized machinery would put a load on the body. The load depended on the level of the machinery. Mechanical force ascension. Apostle body was a set of abilities. Through mechanical force, the body would be transformed into an apostle body, which would be able to convert the energy of machinery. This was the prerequisite for machinery apostolization to take effect. At the same time, this talent determined the number of apostolized machinery that the body could withstand. The attributes were intelligence and endurance, and the sum of the two was the upper limit of the load that the body could withstand. The load of each machinery depended on the energy level of the machinery, and the stronger the machinery, the higher the load. For every apostolized machinery that the body could withstand, the body's upper limit of health would temporarily decrease by 2,500 points, which would only be recovered after the apostolization ended. These two abilities were the signature abilities of an apostle mechanic. They could share the energy of the machinery and allow the user to control more power. In his previous life, the players had done research and believed that this ability to gather power in one's body was one of the prerequisites to becoming a beyond grade A mechanic. Not only mechanics, but the other four classes also had abilities with different effects, but similar principles when they reached this level. It was as if they were starting to evolve into a higher level species. The players in his previous life believed that this was evidence of the saying beyond grade A is a new high-level life form. However, to the players, the way of apostolization was very simple. It was like placing a machine into one's equipment slot to receive bonuses. However, Han Xiao had true perception, so he did not know how he would feel. Han Xiao directly tested the effect of apostolization. He held the compressed orb of the Ice Age star freezing cannon in his hand, and mechanical force gushed out, enveloping the compressed orb and seeping into it to perform apostolization. The next moment, Han Xiao's expression changed slightly. His mechanical force was like a straw absorbing the energy of the Ice Age star freezing cannon. A surge of violent psionic energy flowed into his body through the connection. Originally, he could only control the energy produced by his cells. However, now that the psionic energy in his body was mixed with the mechanical force, he could control it as well. The compressed orb was also vibrating nonstop, and the surface of the orb was filled with blue energy circuits. You have used apostolization on Ice Age Star Freezing Cannon. Your load has increased by 379 points. Your upper limit of health has temporarily decreased by 2,500 points, plus 78 STR, plus 43 DX, plus 35 ENDU can now release energy attacks through your main body or replenish your own energy to consume the energy of the Ice Age Star Freezing Cannon. You have received an additional ability. Attacks released by your main body will enjoy the bonus of Extreme Frost, increasing frost damage by an additional 50%. Han Xiao raised his other hand and shook it slightly. A dark blue psionic energy ball formed in his palm. With a thought, the attribute of this psionic energy ball immediately changed, turning into a bluish-white frost energy ball. He threw it out, and a white beam of light hit the weapon-testing alloy wall not far away. Boom! The moment it hit, the white light expanded and instantly turned the alloy wall into ice shards. Looking at the interface, Han Xiao saw that his energy had not been depleted at all, but the energy of the Ice Age Star Freezing Cannon had decreased by a significant amount. Han Xiao's eyes sparkled, and many new ideas popped up in his mind. Apostolization could be used together with his various abilities to achieve miraculous effects. For example, absorbing the energy of machinery to replenish his energy meant that he did not need to take a beating to recover his health. Or he could use the void attribute mechanical force to connect across space during battle. He could use apostolization remotely without summoning any machinery. Even without the machinery, he would still have a considerable amount of combat power. Very strong ability. It makes up for the weakness of a mechanic to a certain extent. Chapter 698. After testing the new ability, Han Xiao was quite satisfied. The load of a machine was 100 plus X, 100 was the base number, and X was 3% of the machine's energy level. With Han Zhao's load limit, he could obtain about 1,000 attribute points from apostolization, distributed among the 3 attributes of strength, dexterity, and endurance. As long as he could think of ways to increase his intelligence and endurance, the load limit would also increase. Han Zhao had just obtained machinery apostolization, and as his level increased, the effect of this ability would become more and more outstanding. He mainly focused on the army style, and the apostolization ability only added a new support tactic to make his body stronger. He did not need to take a beating like before. Opening the interface, Han Zhao first raised the 2 new abilities to the maximum level. He obtained 2 potential points before using his experience to level up. At this time, Han Zhao's total level was 195. After leveling up 5 times consecutively, he had reached the level 200 threshold. The cost of leveling up in the later stages was extremely high, and his experience points were rapidly depleted. He did not have much experience left from version 2.0, and compared to 3 years ago, the experience points on the interface had shrunk greatly. Apostle Mechanic was now level 5, and its level limit was level 30. It could last all the way to level 225, crossing the threshold between level 200 and level 220. Han Zhao pondered and calculated. Because he had spent quite a lot of experience to level up his abilities and blueprints, the remaining experience would allow him to reach level 206. At that time, his experience points for version 2.0 would officially be used up. If he wanted to level up quickly, he would have to wait until version 3.0. Now that he had reached level 200, the new promotion mission arrived as promised. Han Zhao took a look and was helpless. Fine, he had no choice but to use the mission completion card this time. The requirement for this promotion mission was also a normal mission, but it was a pity that Han Zhao could not do it. The requirement was to clear a high-level dungeon with a grade A rating within 10 levels. To the players, this level was already the late version. They had experienced a lot of main storyline missions and unlocked countless events, so there were many high-level dungeons. However, Han Zhao had not even reached version 3.0 yet. Unless he created a dungeon himself, it would be very difficult for him to find other high-level dungeons. Most importantly, out of caution, Han Zhao had never used dungeon crystals, so it was impossible for him to challenge dungeons. His only choice was the quest completion card. One of the uses of the quest completion card was to help players skip difficult must-do quests, so they would not be stuck until they died. Speaking of the mission completion card, Han Xiaoxin suddenly thought of something. Over the past 3 years, he had obtained some random rewards for missions. There were still 2 random rewards left on the interface that he had not used yet. He had to prepare for such a situation. It just so happened that the S-rank Bloodline mission seemed to have a chance of being completed, so there would definitely be a random reward. Moreover, the random reward of an S-rank mission should have more choices and a higher chance of success. Compared to version 2.0, my strength, reputation, and the size of the Black Star Core have all changed. When the players return, I have enough capital to harvest a wave of Ruthless. Before that, it's best that I use the remaining 7 years to accumulate some mission completion cards. When the time comes, as long as I get the experience, my level will increase. Han Zhao secretly made a plan. After putting away the new equipment, Han Zhao left the modification room, went to the office, and called Reynold and Rosalind. The 2 of them walked in, and Han Zhao went straight to the point. Rosalind, what do you think of the Black Star Core? What do you mean? Rosalind raised her brows. You just have to tell me your general feeling. Do you want me to praise you? Rosalind rolled her eyes, paused, and said with a helpless tone, All right, although I'm a picky person, I have to admit that I admire you a little. I underestimated you when we first met. I didn't expect you to be such a legendary person. Rosalind had been locked up for many years and did not know much about the changes in the outside world. After following Reynold back to the Black Star Core, she started to browse through the things that had happened in the Shattered Star Ring over the years. Only then did she know the current position of the Black Star Core in the Shattered Star Ring, as well as their history. When she first saw the history of the Black Star Core, Her first reaction was suspicion. She suspected that this history was fabricated. What shocked her the most was not the current size of the Black Star Corps, but the speed of the Black Star Corps' rise. At the very most, the Black Star Corps had only been established for about 10 years. Leader Black Star had only used 10 years to grow from a Grade C super to a Beyond Grade A seed whose name shook the entire star field. He had even fought a real Beyond Grade A super recently and survived. Furthermore, in the past 10 years, he had led the Black Star Corps to become a super large armed force in the Colton Star Cluster. With the Amethyst civilization behind him, their bases were spread across dozens of star systems. It was an unbelievable miracle. Rosalind did not expect that Han Xiao, who had saved her, was such a big shot. After reading these files, she was shocked by Han Xiao and could not help but admire him. However, she was too embarrassed to show it on the surface. Han Xiao heard this and said, I would like to ask for your help. You will temporarily be an officer of the Black Star Corps. Rosalind had a playful expression. You want to use my ability to? To be specific, it should be mutually beneficial. You're a special talent, so I'm willing to give you a corresponding reward. What if I don't agree? Don't worry. I said that you have a certain amount of freedom, so I definitely won't force you like the Hutt civilization. Of course, you could choose not to do it. Han Xiao smirked and continued. However, even if you are ambitious and want to start your own business, you won't be able to do anything without money. Furthermore, I can give you a generous reward so that you can accumulate your initial capital. Rosalind curled her lips. With my ability, it's easy to accumulate capital. Why should I help you? Han Xiao smiled. Don't forget, you have a criminal record. I bailed you out, so you can't run around or do anything. Otherwise, according to the galactic law, you'll be wanted. Therefore, working for me temporarily might be your best chance to earn money. Humph, you're threatening and tempting me. Do you think I'll definitely agree to your request? Rosalind snorted. My favorite thing to do is to say no to those who think they can get me. Actually, it's not like your criminal record can't be written off. What do you want me to do? Rosalind walked forward without saying anything. She hugged Han Zhao's arm and shook it continuously. Her expression changed faster than flipping a book. Reynolds looked at Rosalind, who wanted to stick to Han Xiao, and was speechless. He had talked to Rosalind in private and knew that Rosalind wanted to stay and help, but she could not bring herself to do so. Now that Black Star had brought it up, it gave her a chance to agree. Han Xiao also knew that Rosalind would most likely not reject him. After all, 80 favorability points were not just for show. He also knew how to deal with Rosalind's cynical and vicious personality. As long as he gave Rosalind an excuse, she would accept his invitation. It could be said that he was at Sundara. Your job is a cultural instructor. You'll teach and train the members of the Black Star Corps. You'll spread the history of the Army to all the members and deepen their understanding of the Black Star Corps. You'll cultivate their sense of identity. Go back and study the experience of the Black Star Corps during this period. Compile it into a textbook and find an entry point to establish the unique beliefs of the Black Star Corps. After you're done, hand it to me for review. Han Xiao pulled his arm out of Rosalind's embrace and said with a serious tone, in order for the faction to develop healthily, the sense of identity and loyalty of the members had to be cultivated. This required the establishment of a corporate culture. For example, Bloodshed Land and Hidden Red Robe Abbey both had their own culture with distinct characteristics. Han Xiao felt that not only did he need to cultivate the sense of identity and belonging of the players, but he also needed to treat the other members of the army equally. Only then would he be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. After Rosalind accepted the job and left the room, Reynolds thanked Han Xiao. Thank you for giving my sister a job. You're someone I value. There's no need to say such polite words. Han Xiao waved his hands with a nonchalant expression. Even with Reynolds' serious personality, he could not help but feel touched. Such a boss is so awesome. After chatting for a while, Han Xiao got down to business. About a month ago, I asked you to help Vilna build an army. How's it going now? I mobilized a batch of resources as starting funds, about 70 million anas, Reynolds said. I used Floating Dragon's name to purchase a fleet and recruit people. However, Some of them did not want to join the new Floating Dragon field team, but came for us. They only want to join the Black Star Corps. Han Shao pondered. Anyone with a discerning eye would know that the rise of the Black Star Corps had also increased Floating Dragon's influence. Currently, the Black Star Corps was the strongest force under Floating Dragon. Joining Black Star would also increase Floating Dragon's influence. The two signboards added together were double the happiness. Most people only wanted to join the Black Star Corps. Furthermore, the rumors of Floating Dragon splitting for Black Star had always been circulating. Compared to Floating Dragon, most people preferred the Black Star Army, which had a brighter future and greater ambition. If they were to split up in the future, staying in the Black Star Army would have a brighter future, which was more reliable than Floating Dragon. Even though Han Shao had not reached beyond Grady yet, the Black Star Corps' assets were already larger than Floating Dragon's. After all, Ames did not have any deep cooperation with the Star Cluster civilizations and did not have as many connections as he did. How big do you think the 70 million starting funds will be? Han Shao asked. It's hard to say. Based on the current spending speed, we'll be able to spend 70 million in half a year. The final result should not be comparable to a large mercenary group. That's too little, Han Shao said decisively. I'll give you 3 months to spend this amount of money. After that, add another 150 million anus. Reynolds was shocked. Won't the cost be too high? Don't worry, I don't lack money. Han Shao smiled. Floating Dragon had helped him a lot in the beginning, and he was not planning to save money when it came to the mission of building the second field team. Furthermore, the income that he gave to Jenny every month was astronomical, so he did not care about this little bit of money. Currently, the Black Star Corps was working with hundreds of financial groups to mine resource planets in dozens of star systems. The profits were extremely high. Excluding maintenance, mining, commission, and so on, the monthly profit for mining was at least 200 million anus. Mining was currently the Army's biggest industry. As long as he could establish a relationship with the political forces, earning money would become very simple. Of course, this amount of profit was still not comparable to the star system civilizations. However, it was enough to maintain an armed force for the time being. The word poor had already been removed from his dictionary. Chapter 699. By the way, the report about the Dark Star leader is out today. Take a look, Reynolds suddenly said. Take a look. Han Xiaoxin took out his communicator and surfed the internet. He had only been in seclusion for a day, but the news about the transfer of the Dark Star leader had spread rapidly. The Galactic reporters focused on Clint's suspected collusion with Dark Star, and the fallen Arkansas Clint had been prepared for this and wanted to stop the rumors from spreading. They immediately jumped out to deny it with a firm attitude, saying that this was slander and that Purple Crystal had made it up. It's useless to deny it. Purple Crystal definitely has a way to pry open the mouth of the Dark Star leader. Han Shao chuckled. Clint's assassination attempts had angered him. Now that he finally had the chance, he was more than happy to create trouble for Clint. The secret war was in a stalemate, and no one could do anything to the other. Furthermore, they could not harm Clint themselves. However, if they attacked the Dark Star leader, they could hurt Clint politically. In the next half a month, Han Shao waited for Serbia V's reply while paying attention to the Dark Star leader incident. Purple Crystal was determined to magnify the impact of this incident and attract the attention of various organizations, causing a commotion in the star field. The crime of funding Dark Star and colluding with the Fallen Ark could be big or small. If it was not exposed, perhaps no one would pursue it. However, it was now a sensitive period with the Crimson Tide. Now that Clint had exposed their weakness, the other star cluster civilizations in the Shattered Star Ring were like sharks that smelled blood. They all wanted to take a bite out of Clint and attack Clint's political power. Clint's inflated ambition had always made many star cluster civilizations wary. Not only had they joined the Red Empire to take over the flickering world, but they also did not want to give up their position in the Shattered Star Ring and wanted to expand their territory to 2 star fields. Their appetite was too big. Therefore, these star cluster civilizations hoped to weaken Clint's political position in the Shattered Star Ring and not let their little scheme go so smoothly. They could not stop Clint from going to the flickering world in the future, but they could take the opportunity to weaken their influence in a shattered star ring. Want to develop in two star fields at the same time? You don't look like much, but you sure are dreaming. Once someone was powerful, the other civilizations would not mind targeting them. Not only were they attacking their competitors, but they were also protecting their own interests. As the saying went, hit the snake where it hurts the most. Han Zhao's actions hit the nail on the head and gave the other star cluster civilizations a good opportunity. Clint was immediately attacked by the other civilizations, creating a huge problem. Clint hated Han Zhao to the core. This time, Han Zhao had taken on a much weaker opponent, and it had even affected their entire strategy. However, after so many failed assassinations, Clint could not do anything to Han Zhao. They could only solve this problem from a political perspective. In the past half a month, Purple Crystal and Clint had been fighting a war of words. One side strongly condemned, and the other side denied. In a nutshell, Clint, you're heartless, cold, and unreasonable. Purple Crystal, you're the heartless one, you're the cold one, you're the unreasonable one. This conversation continued on and on. This incident even involved the Red Empire. The Red Empire sent an emissary to Clint to investigate this matter. The Red Empire was negotiating with the Radiant Federation about who would control the flickering world. At this juncture, a scandal of Clint colluding with the Fallen Ark was exposed. This guy was wanted by all three universal civilizations. His identity was sensitive, and Clint was the new underling of the Red Empire. The scandal involved the Red Empire and gave the Radiant Federation a political bargaining chip. This made the Red Empire very angry. Their attitude was very clear. What's wrong with you, bro? Part of this intelligence came from Ralph. He had revealed the inside story of the game to Han Zhao. This day, he called Han Zhao to talk about this matter and revealed the subsequent developments. The Red Empire is involved. They have reached an agreement with us. They can make decisions on behalf of Clint and give up some of their rights in the Shattered Star Ring. The condition is that this matter is suppressed as soon as possible. All of you agreed? Han Zhao was curious. After all, a universal civilization negotiated with them personally, so we did not dare to pursue the matter. However, some civilizations contacted the Radiant Federation privately and hoped that the Radiant Federation would support us. They probably felt that the Radiant Federation was fighting for the flickering world and would not let go of this opportunity to attack the Red Empire. However, for some reason, the Radiant Federation did not do anything. Thus, we could only stop while we were ahead. Han Zhao nodded. This was the tragedy of being an underling. The Red Empire gave up some benefits on behalf of Clint in order to stop their own losses. Of course, the Red Empire was not willing to lose Clint as a chess piece, so they must have promised some other compensation. Since Clint was after the flickering world, they could only put their eggs in their pockets and swallow their anger. So this matter is over? More or less. We can't pursue it anymore. Then, what price did Clint pay? That's a secret. I don't know either. We and the other star cluster civilizations will digest the benefits that Clint gave up. Then, the secret war. Han Zhao raised his brows. Ralph sighed. So we still have to fight. The Red Empire did not talk about the secret war, and the other star cluster civilizations immediately stayed out of it after receiving the benefits that Clint gave up. They drew a clear line with us and ended this temporary alliance. Obviously, they want us to continue fighting with Clint and wear each other down. This will be more beneficial to them. There are no eternal friends, only eternal benefits. It's too real. Han Zhao shook his head helplessly. These civilizations all wanted to benefit from the fight between the Snipe and the Clam. In the original storyline, at the end of the Secret War, the Red Empire only represented Clint at the negotiation table. Now, they had no choice but to enter and clean up Clint's mess. This was caused by him. This was something that had never happened before, and it would definitely change the direction of the entire storyline. Han Zhao pondered. He felt that since Clint was taken advantage of, in order to replenish their health, they might put more effort into the secret war and fight more aggressively. He told this to Ralph, and Ralph smiled strangely. Did you know that because of this, Heber is unhappy with Clint? Han Zhao's eyes sparkled as he started to imagine. Originally, the tyrant was Clint's only beyond grade A ally. In the original storyline, Bloodshed Land and Clint were on good terms. Now that Clint and God were flirting with each other and were caught in bed by Heber, it was like the wife finding out about the mistress. How infuriating. I was the one who did it first. Looks like the secret war will become even more stalemate. It should last until the start of version 3.0. Han Xiao was quite satisfied with this outcome. He had created internal and external problems to make Clint anxious. This was his revenge for Clint's repeated attempts to assassinate him. You have to pay for what you did. There's one more thing. Serbia V told us that you want to use Rosalind's ability to help Ghidorah resolve the bloodline conflict. That's right. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. This matter is a little sensitive, so he wants to ask Purple Crystal to be the witness and use Purple Crystal's name to carry out this plan. What do you think? Han Xiao was stunned for a moment before understanding. Serbia V had decided to take his suggestion and try to resolve the bloodline conflict. Serbia V thought of a better excuse and used Purple Crystal's name to carry out the discrimination elimination plan, making it seem like an advanced civilization was helping Ghidorah. With a star cluster civilization as a shield, the Ghidorah government would suffer much less criticism, and the citizens would find it easier to accept. After all, the majority of the citizens were all too familiar with their own government. As the saying goes, the difference makes the heart grow fonder. Many people would feel that the interference of an advanced civilization would definitely be more reliable than their own government. Han Xiao thought for a while, hung up, and dialed Serbia V's number. The call was picked up immediately. Clearly, Serbia V had been waiting for a long time. Your Excellency Black Star, I'm prepared to use your method, but I hope that this will be carried out in the name of the Amethyst civilization. Maybe we can announce that this is your contribution. Serbia V went straight to the point, but I'm willing to pay a higher price privately. What do you think? Han Xiao scratched his earlobe and said that's fine. He was mainly doing this to complete the bloodline mission. This fame was not even comparable to his beyond grade A seed. Serbia V heaved a sigh of relief and explained, that's great. It's not that I don't trust you, but this is too important. I have to find a gentle way to make more Ghidorah people accept it. In fact, this was only one of the reasons. After all, Han Xiao was not an official organization. Serbia V was still a little worried, so he pulled the Purple Crystal Civilization as a guarantee. However, of course, he would not say this out loud, and the two of them had a tacit understanding. Since you've agreed, I'll bring Rosalind over to discuss the specifics. Okay, I'll get Nagajan to pick you up. You can come directly to Ghidorah's mother planet. Why is it Nagajan again? Han Xiao suddenly realized that every time the Ghidorah civilization interacted with him, they would always send Nagajan to pick him up. Aren't you guys friends? Serbia V was confused, but threw this question to the back of his mind. Anyway, I'll wait for you on the mother planet. Han Xiao nodded, hung up, and called Rosalind. Pack up and get ready to go. I have a job for you. A few days later, Ghidorah's mother planet. The spaceship landed at the military dock. Han Xiao walked out of the cabin with Rosalind, and Nagajan led the way in front. They took the hovering car all the way to the government building. Han Xiao brought them straight to Serbia V's office. You're finally here. Serbia V had been waiting for a long time and quickly stood up to welcome them. After a few words of greeting, everyone sat down. Serbia V sized up Rosalind from time to time. At this time, Rosalind showed the side of her former pope. She was noble and elegant, and her eyes were calm. Serbia V could not figure her out. He only felt that this woman had the aura of a big shot and was not simple. They had worked together for many years and were very familiar with each other. Han Xiao did not beat around the bush and asked directly. Long story short, what plan do you have? At his current level, a star system civilization was not as rare as before. He planned to use evil methods to complete the bloodline mission as soon as possible and get the Grade S mission reward. He still had some time before his holiday, and Clint had an internal conflict. He did not need to join the war for the time being, so he did not want to waste too much time on the bloodline mission. He planned to use the rest of his holiday to do mercenary missions and get more random rewards. Before version 3.0 arrived, it would be best to save up more mission completion cards. According to Rosalind's ability, we prepared a few backup plans. Chapter 700. After spending 2 minutes, Han Xiao browsed through Serbia the Fifth's plan. He then passed the document to Rosalind and nodded. It seems like you're not going to ask for the opinions of the Godora people. Although this is beneficial to the future of the civilization, most people's free will only drag us down. We have to act arbitrarily in order to push this plan forward. This was a private meeting without leaving any information, so Serbia the Fifth was much more direct. Rosalind finished reading the document and nodded casually. I understand your request. Are you sure you don't want to implant something else in the minds of the people? Hearing this, Serbia the Fifth wiped his cold sweat. No need, no need. Eliminating discrimination is enough. Okay, if it's just eliminating discrimination, it's very simple for me. Rosalind gave an enigmatic smile, which made Serbia the Fifth's heart skip a beat. In front of outsiders, Rosalind was not as casual as she was in front of Han Xiao. On the way, Han Xiao had already told her to keep her cool and not reveal her true nature to scare Serbia the Fifth. At this moment, Rosalind put her finger on her cheekbone, looked at Serbia the Fifth, smiled elegantly, and explained her thoughts. Black Star has already told me the situation. According to my understanding, there are 3 main reasons for the bloodline conflict in Godora. The first is the traditional concept of bloodline purity. Under the baptism of the galactic environment, only a small number of pure bloods still stubbornly believe in this concept. I call this group of people the diehards. Their thinking is the most difficult to change. The second is the discrimination caused by biological differences. It comes from instinctive disgust when seeing intelligent life and deformed aliens. Maybe some pure bloods don't want to discriminate against hybrids, but when they see them, they can't help but hate them. This is the reason for most people's discrimination. To change this, I think we have to start with aesthetics. The third is the hatred accumulated from the conflicts caused by years of discrimination. It's a problem left over from history. Also, due to discrimination, the average social status of pure bloods is higher than hybrids, and they have more say in various industries. This can be seen as a class conflict. Although I can temporarily suppress this hatred, if you don't change the situation in the long run, the conflict will sprout again. Serbia the Fifth felt a headache coming on. In his eyes, each of these 3 factors was an almost unsolvable problem. Just listening to Rosalind's analysis made him feel extremely troubled, and he once again doubted the feasibility of this plan. Rosalind seemed to have seen through his worries. She said calmly, optimistically, it will take at least a few decades to dilute these problems using conventional means. But now that I'm here, I can shorten this process by thousands of times. The first 2 points are the main problems. As long as we solve the problem of the diehards and aesthetics, the class conflict will gradually improve. Serbia the Fifth took a deep breath, stood up, and bowed deeply to Han Xiao and Rosalind, giving them a universal bow. I'm counting on you. In the morning, the warm yellow sun awoke the sleeping city. In a certain commercial plaza on Godora's mother planet, there were many tall buildings. Hovering vehicles shuttled between the buildings. From time to time, passers-by wearing flying runes would take off or land on an open-air platform extending from the tall buildings. It was a bustling scene. At this time, there was a long line at a certain hovering bus station on an open-air platform. It was the morning commute time for office workers. These Godora, people who were preparing to go to work, were waiting for public transportation. The productivity of a star system civilization was enough to feed the lazy fat otakus, but the mother planet, as the capital of the civilization, had always maintained a strong vitality. Those who settled down on the mother planet were all high-quality laborers who were willing to work hard, unlike the God-in colonial planet, which was lifeless and full of fat otakus. There was no concept of work. Rudy was in the middle of the line. He was dressed decently and looked like a social elite. However, unlike the Godora people around him, he did not have external ears. His ears were spiral holes, and he did not have braids and accessories like the other Godora people. Because he did not have long hair, his facial features were more spaced apart. He looked very out of place, and his appearance was very unique. He was the only mixed blood in the entire line. Rudy could feel the indistinct gazes around him. There was a faint sense of rejection. He was expressionless and looked straight ahead. It was as if his heart was as still as water, and he did not care at all. In fact, he was hoping that the hovering bus would arrive at the station in the next second, so that he would not have to endure being surrounded like an animal in a zoo. Rudy was 63 years old this year. According to the lifespan of a Godora person, he had just reached middle age. He was an employee of a large corporation and had a lot of seniority and income. Logically speaking, he should have a middle-class status in society. However, his appearance brought him hidden resistance everywhere. He knew that his current position was basically the limit, and he would not be promoted anymore. What he hated the most every day was going to work. It was not because the work was hard, but because going to work meant that he had to socialize and endure all kinds of strange gazes. He was under immense psychological pressure every day, but he could not show any emotions on his face. Countless times, he would wake up in the middle of the night and sit in the dark, thinking that he should just resign. Why should he humiliate himself? However, every time he saw his wife sleeping beside him, Rudy would dispel this thought. His wife was a beautiful pure-blooded. She had ignored her family's objections and married him, a mixed blood, and had given birth to 2 children for him. After being married for many years, his wife's family still treated him coldly, and his wife rarely complained. For the sake of his family, Rudy did not dare resign. He could only vent his anxiety and annoyance in silence while he smoked. To him, life was like a pool of stagnant water, like a gray silent film that was played repeatedly every day. Only when he returned home and saw the smiling faces of his wife and children would his life regain its color and sound. Rudy did not have any expectations for the future. It was good that he could not see the road ahead, but the scary thing was that he could see the end of his life. Rudy laughed at himself. At this moment, the 2 people behind him suddenly started chatting, and their conversation reached his ears. Have you heard? Some time ago, the Darkstar leader was arrested. It was announced that the Darkstar organization was completely destroyed. More than half a month has passed. Of course I know. Hee. There are reports that the trial of the Darkstar leader has ended, and he has been locked up in the Rainbow Prison. I'm not sure about that. Tell me. Rudy could only pretend that he did not hear the conversation between the 2 people behind him. Because of the existence of a Darkstar, the hybrids were criticized even more. After the destruction of the Darkstar organization, purebloods had intentionally or unintentionally mentioned the Darkstar in front of him more than once, as if it was a form of sarcasm. Rudy did not agree with the philosophy of the Darkstar. As a hybrid who yearned for stability, he even hated the behavior of the Darkstar. However, in the eyes of the purebloods, it seemed that every hybrid worshipped the Darkstar. The destruction of the Darkstar was equivalent to the failure of the hybrids. Thus, they could show the attitude of a victor and hold their heads high. At this moment, a virtual screen projection appeared between the tall buildings in the distance, attracting everyone's attention. Serbia, the 5th figure, appeared on the virtual screen. He faced the camera with a serious expression and sat upright, as if he had something important to announce. The same scene appeared in every city on Godora's colonial planet. The official announcement was made to the entire civilization. Under the gaze of thousands of people, Serbia the 5th slowly opened his mouth. Today, I represent the Godora government to announce an important decision. In order to prevent the tragedy of the Darkstar from happening again, we have decided to accept the help of the Amethyst civilization. We will use unconventional means to solve the problem of bloodline discrimination that has existed for a long time. Serbia the 5th recited the script that he had written a long time ago. In a long speech, he described the situation as the Purple Crystal civilization taking the initiative to lend a helping hand. After careful consideration, he decided to accept the help. He embellished his words and tried his best to reduce the rejection of the people. However, Everyone in Godora was still shocked by this news. There was complete silence. Only a few seconds after the news ended did countless people wake up from their days and burst into an uproar. This is too sudden. There was no warning at all. He's trying to brainwash us. Why does he have to change our views? Free will is inviolable. Is Serbia the Fifth crazy? Will there be repercussions? Is this the intention of the Amethyst civilization? Maybe it's reliable. The surrounding Godora people discussed at once. Their reactions were different, but most of them were shocked and dissatisfied. Ludi did not participate in the discussion. His eyes were wide open, and his face was full of disbelief. At this moment, he only felt that his heart, which had been numb for a long time, seemed to be injected with vitality again. His stagnant future seemed to have cracked open, revealing the dawn of drastic change. On this day, Godora's network of contacts from all walks of life was mobilized. They inquired about the government's intentions from various channels. Everyone was anxious. No one wanted others to change their views, even if it was a good thing for the collective. As expected, there was a backlash from the individual wishes. However, Serbia the Fifth promised subsidies, tax cuts, and all sorts of benefits after accepting the discrimination transformation plan, but he did not give the people the option to reject. There was an uproar on the internet. Protest groups also sprung up in real life. Serbia the Fifth's plan shook the entire society, but he insisted on doing it. With Purple Crystal's intervention, the internal resistance was forcefully suppressed, and the huge government machine started operating according to his wishes. The upper echelons of society were basically controlled by the purebloods. These people had a huge amount of power, and most of them were diehards. They also did not receive any information beforehand. Although they hated Serbia the Fifth's plan, they did not jump out to oppose it immediately. Instead, they observed the situation calmly. Thus, the external resistance did not increase. Purple Crystal's name helped Serbia the Fifth avoid more criticism. A star cluster civilization was still able to scare Godora people. Even though Serbia the Fifth's actions were similar to a dictatorship, many Godora people still thought that this was the intention of the Amethyst civilization. All sorts of factors allowed Serbia the Fifth to forcefully carry out this crazy plan. Seeing that they could not change the government's intentions, all Godora people focused their attention on the first trial area of the discrimination transformation plan that Serbia the Fifth announced. It was the border area colony planet Gotten. The low-importance fat otaku planet was naturally the best place for the trial. Even if there were negative consequences, the negative impact on the entire civilization would be limited. Rainbow Light Prison, top secret single cell. The Dark Star leader sat in the corner of the cell. The cell was pitch black, and he could only hear his own breathing in the darkness. His trial had ended. Godora and Purple Crystal had gotten what they wanted. Thus, he was locked up and would spend the rest of his life in prison. The hope that supported his beliefs had been destroyed. The Dark Star leader seemed to have lost his backbone. His temperament collapsed, and his heart was numb. The Rainbow Prison could destroy the beliefs of the Dark Star members. He did not know if he could persevere in the future, but he did not care about anything now. Clang! The narrow feeding window at the bottom of the cell door opened, and a plate of food was thrown into the cell along with the light. Recently, Serbia the Fifth actually wants to brainwash all Godora people to eliminate discrimination against hybrids. Was he instigated by Dark Star? The prison guard outside the door suddenly spoke with a sarcastic tone. After saying this, he closed the feeding window, and the sound of footsteps gradually faded away. In the darkness, the Dark Star leader suddenly opened his eyes. His originally numb eyes were filled with shock, and his face was filled with confusion. Brainwash an entire civilization. F***CK. Could be that we're on the same path? You're even better than me. Chapter 701. Planet Godin was the first test area of Godora's discrimination modification plan. Regardless of whether they were purebloods or hybrids, all the Godora people had their eyes on Godin, wanting to know what Serbia the Fifth was doing. Under the watchful eyes of the public, A giant flagship of the Amethyst civilization arrived at planet Godin and used some kind of device to release an invisible psychic current to the entire planet. Serbia V announced that Purple Crystal had used a secret star cluster-level technology to modify the thoughts of the Godora people on a large scale. He also assured the public that this device was very reliable. In reality, this was just a disguise that he had discussed with Purple Crystal to make it seem like a huge commotion and reduce the public's uneasiness. The key person who actually carried out the discrimination modification was naturally Rosalind. This was the first time she displayed her ability in front of Han Xiao. The large-scale psychic current that the Purple Crystal flagship released on planet Godin was actually a device that strengthened the psychic power of Rosalind's Esper ability, greatly increasing the range of her Esper ability. Psychics also had hypnosis and brainwashing techniques, but the accuracy and range were not as good as Rosalind's thought infection Esper ability. Her Esper ability was a shallow brainwashing, and the process was very gentle. It was done subtly and did not affect the person's personality. Instead, it gave the target a new way of looking at things. It could even be said that Rosalind had opened up a new perspective of the world for the target. This Esper ability was very suitable for preaching and shaping ideas. The modification project lasted for 2 days. The fat nerds in Godin were originally very uneasy, but as time passed, they did not notice any changes in their thoughts. They gradually became suspicious and thought that it was not effective. 2 days later, the Purple Crystal flagship left. All the Godora people were paying attention to the results of the experiment. The internet was filled with topics about planet Godin. Everyone participated and asked curiously, "Are there any residents of Godin? Come out and tell us how you feel." "I don't feel any changes." "Am I the only one?" "No, I'm also from Godin. I don't feel any changes." "Did it fail?" I don't know if you guys feel the same way. At first, I thought that it wouldn't work, but just now I took the initiative to chat with a mixed-blood friend. At first, I was a little repulsed by him, but when I saw him just now, I was actually calm and even felt that he had delicate features. Cough, cough, I'm anonymous. I don't want him to find out. Is that so? I'm not quite the same as you. I have a mixed-blood friend too. I thought he was quite ugly at first, but after video chatting with him just now, although I still think he's ugly, the disgust that I felt from time to time is gone. The people of Godora gradually understood the changes in the residents of Goding. The transformed individuals maintained their own personalities and even knew what kind of changes they had undergone. This result made Godora feel more at ease. At least they did not forcefully distort their thoughts. Serbia V had been paying attention to the reactions of the people. Seeing this, he held another press conference to emphasize that the discrimination modification plan was harmless. He also wanted to let the people know about their changes and respect the individual's right to know. At the same time, the government was secretly guiding public opinion, trying to make the people feel that accepting mixed bloods was a policy that would never change in Godora. Since they could not change the general trend, perhaps changing themselves was a good choice and could make the atmosphere of society better. The success of the experiment and the control of public opinion did indeed make some people less wary. Some people even approved of this idea. By accepting the modification, the mixed bloods that were not pleasing to the eye would no longer make them feel disgusted, and their daily lives would become more harmonious. With the first success, Serbia V had more confidence. After observing for a long time and using various methods to confirm that the residents of Goding did not suffer any sequelae, he was finally at ease. He vigorously promoted the plan and allowed all the colonial planets of Godora to accept the modification. The people of Godora called this the discrimination modification campaign. The pure-blooded diehards had power and influence. Even if the discrimination modification did not cause any sequelae, they were not willing to accept it. Thus, they used their power and influence to create external resistance for Serbia V. The network of connections of the upper class even caused the government to have problems. The diehards stirred up public opinion to smear Serbia V, saying that he was a lunatic, even crazier than Darkstar. They said that he was leading Godora to its grave and become a slave to the advanced civilizations. Many people were influenced by public opinion and became very angry. They said that the government did not ask for their opinion and wanted to change their minds. What did they think they were? Serbia V's reputation on the internet plummeted, and he was even called the second-generation leader of Dark Star. However, Serbia V was not angry. Instead, he was happy and used this opportunity to publicly explain. Regardless of whether the people believed it or not, this was an opportunity. As long as he did what he wanted, he could create his own image. Some conspiracy theorists naturally did not listen to the explanation and were even more excited. Serbia V did not stand on ceremony with them and asked people to invite them to tea so that they would stop. He did not care about these smears. To him, this was just a painful process. When the plan was completed, the entire galactic society would naturally have a high opinion of him, and he would become the most powerful leader in the history of Godora. When the upper class saw that public opinion was useless, they secretly funded high-ranking officials in the government, hoping to impeach Serbia V and find a way to change the leader. Unfortunately, ever since they entered the galactic era, Godora had already taken back a lot of the privileges of the nobles. Furthermore, Godora was a hereditary system, and the system was not democratic. Serbia V also had the support of Purple Crystal, so his position was impregnable. Therefore, facing the counterattack of the upper class, Serbia V scoffed. Serbia V was not willing to waste time scheming against each other. Therefore, he directly talked to many of the diehards of the upper class with a very firm attitude. If you continue to cause trouble, you will have to pay back all the benefits the government has given you in the past. You can go wherever you want to go. The upper class was terrified, seeing that all kinds of methods could not stop the discrimination transformation movement. They realized that there was nothing they could do. Therefore, they changed the content of their protest and believed that if the purebloods had to be transformed, the hybrids had to be transformed too. Otherwise, there would be hidden dangers. The hybrids had always been bullied, and they had accumulated resentment. After some research, some of the rebellious hybrids were indifferent to the discrimination transformation movement. They felt that the purebloods had discriminated against them for so many years and caused so many tragedies. Now that they no longer discriminated against them, how could there be such a good thing in the world? Serbia V did not ignore them. The hybrids had to be transformed and treated equally. Godora's discrimination transformation movement was in full swing and caused an uproar in the galaxy. A small star system civilization successfully dominated the headlines for a period of time. Even the star cluster civilizations in the Shattered Star Ring were watching curiously. The government brainwashing all its citizens. This was too rare. Countless galactic reporters swarmed over, and Serbia V decided to hold a press conference to answer the questions that these reporters were most interested in. A day later, these famous media outlets released their own reports. One of the reports became popular in the galaxy and received the most approval. In the report, Serbia V received a positive evaluation and was praised to the sky. The reporter believed that the discrimination modification movement was a powerful medicine that was precisely targeted at the stubborn problem of bloodline conflict. Only a leader as bold as Serbia V would dare to carry out such a seemingly crazy plan. Although there were many obstacles at the moment, it was actually beneficial for the future of the civilization. In the report, Serbia V was described as a leader of great talent, vision, and courage. The report also interviewed many Godora hybrids who were wandering outside, and many of them revealed their intention to return to Godora. The reporters called this phenomenon Godora's grand unification trend. The idea that Dark Star could not complete was achieved by Serbia V instead, and it was even better. The reporters felt that this was very dramatic. The Purple Crystal civilization was also evaluated as being warm-hearted and responsible, and they were willing to step forward to resolve the internal conflicts of the civilizations under their jurisdiction. Their credibility was increased, and this was a pleasant surprise, indirectly increasing the support of the Purple Crystal civilization in the three border star systems. The report also mentioned Han Shao and felt that his capture of the Dark Star leader was the source of everything that happened later. This allowed Ghidorah and Purple Crystal to get closer, which indirectly led to the discrimination transformation movement. Although outsiders did not know that the discrimination transformation movement was actually the result of Han Xiao pulling the strings behind the scenes, this report did not forget about him. It felt that Black Star's contribution was also indispensable and gave him a share of the credit, making his reputation in the galaxy even more positive. Han Xiao also saw this report and felt very good. Sure enough, the eyes of the masses were sharp. In his previous life, no player had completed the Bloodline mission, and Ghidorah's bloodline conflicts continued to fester. Although there were no more terrorist organizations like Dark Star, the sharper internal conflicts caused the hybrids to have fewer and fewer opportunities to rise up the ranks. They were all at the bottom of society, and this led to a large exodus of hybrids. At the same time, it gave birth to many rebel forces and endless internal conflicts. If not for the mission, Han Xiao would not have cared about the internal conflicts of Ghidorah. His original intention was to complete the mission and get the reward, but the results seemed to be a good thing. The current Ghidorah government had done what Dark Star could not. Han Xiao could not help but want to see how Dark Star's leader would react to this. The Rainbow Light Prison was an independent interstellar fortress that floated in the universe and was heavily guarded. Han Xiao could now move freely in Ghidorah. Not to mention a prison, he could even enter Serbia the Fifth's room. He requested to visit the Rainbow Prison, and Ghidorah agreed without hesitation. The Blacklight Stealth arrived at the Rainbow Prison and stopped at the dock. The warden came out to welcome him. "It's my honor to meet you, respected hero of the Ghidorah Medal, friend of Ghidorah, Your Excellency Black Star." The warden was very respectful. "I would like to visit the Dark Star members in the Rainbow Prison and then talk to the leader of Dark Star." "Sorry to trouble you, Warden." Han Xiao smiled. "Please follow me." The warden led the way, and Han Xiao followed him into the Rainbow Prison. They walked past many cells, all of which were Dark Star members. Han Xiao even saw the former Dark Star officer, Degulish. This guy's entire body was shackled with electromagnetic shackles, and his expression was numb. One look, and one could tell that he was living a happy life in this prison. After looking around, Han Xiao came to the most heavily guarded cell. The Dark Star leader was locked inside. The warden personally opened the cell door and invited Han Xiao in. He then stayed outside to give the two of them some space to talk. Han Xiao walked into the cell, and the cell door closed behind him. Darkness fell before his eyes. He casually summoned a hovering guard and turned it into a light source, illuminating the room. The Dark Star leader was sitting in the corner, and his depressed aura had disappeared. He stared at Han Xiao with a complicated expression. "It's you. It's me. I'm here. I'm still here. I've answered the 3 questions you're going to ask. Can we talk about something else now?" Han Xiao rolled his eyes. The Dark Star leader was speechless. "Why do you like to stop people from talking?" At this time, the Dark Star leader suddenly realized that he and Black Star had been enemies for so long, and this was the first time the two of them had a proper chat. Chapter 702. Han Xiao sized up the Dark Star leader and commented, "Your complexion seems much better. I heard that Ghidorah's government is using extreme methods to deal with the bloodline conflict, and they're doing a much better job than me." The Dark Star leader's tone was complicated. "From the perspective of a war criminal, you're quite well informed," Han Xiao joked. The Dark Star leader shook his head. "Do you know that I'm going to be executed soon?" Han Xiao's eyes moved. "Wasn't your punishment to be locked up indefinitely?" "It was changed. It's probably a request from the Red Empire." The Dark Star leader sighed. Han Xiao's eyes moved as he nodded slightly. The Red Empire wanted to suppress Clint's crimes as soon as possible, so they naturally had to kill this important witness. Since the political deal had been completed, and the Dark Star leader had lost his value, Purple Crystal and Ghidorah did not reject the Red Empire's request. Although the Dark Star leader was a Calamity-grade super with research value, in the political casino between civilizations, he was only a slightly bigger chip. What made him curious was that the Dark Star leader was very calm, even though he knew that he was going to be executed. You don't hate me? Han Xiao was curious. If it was a few days ago, I would have hated you, but it's different now. The Dark Star leader had a complicated expression. I was once lost and made a deal with Clint, doing some dirty work for them. They promised to build a home for the Ghidorah hybrids in the flickering world in the future. When I was caught by you, I thought that everything was over, but who would have thought, in the most desperate moment, I saw a real turning point. Over the past few days, I have been reflecting on my past. The existence of Darkstar has made Ghidorah realize the danger of the bloodline conflict. Getting rid of me, their mortal enemy, is the same as getting rid of their final obstacle. In order to prevent a second me from appearing, Ghidorah has finally made up their mind to get rid of the bloodline conflict. While their method is different from mine, the Ghidorah government has done a much better job than mine. Perhaps you don't believe me, but everything I do is to change the situation of mixed bloods. It's just that my identity forces me to choose an extreme method. The future I look forward to is like a shadow of nothingness. No matter what I do, it's always far away. It's you who let me see that my beliefs aren't without hope, but that there's a price to pay, and that's my life. I don't hate you. If I wasn't caught by you, the discrimination transformation movement would not have happened. If I could use my life to lay the foundation for my ideals, I would have no regrets. You made with my death. The Darkstar leader's tone revealed a sense of relief and acceptance of his fate. He even revealed a faint smile. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and remained unmoved. He slowly said, "You could be considered to have died a worthy death, but don't make yourself sound so noble. You're still a terrorist with a heavy debt of blood." He would not pity a villain because of his last words of remorse. It was just an acceptance of fate. If the Darkstar leader had not been caught, even if he knew that surrendering could change the situation of the hybrids, this guy might not have been willing to give up his life. I know. The Darkstar leader lowered his eyes. Han Xiao touched his chin and laughed. However, your guess is wrong. Ghidorah's determination to solve the bloodline conflict was not because of you. You are not as important as you think. Then why? The Darkstar leader was puzzled. Could he have guessed wrong? To tell you the truth, the person who convinced Serbia V to promote the discrimination transformation movement was me. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. The Darkstar leader's eyes widened. He could not remain calm. He suddenly stood up with a shocked expression. He did not think that Han Xiao would come all the way to lie to him, a person who was about to die. Why did you help me? The Darkstar leader's lips trembled. Han Xiao clicked his tongue and said unhappily, "Help you? Do I know you that well? Don't think too highly of yourself. I have my reasons, but they have nothing to do with you." The Darkstar leader was silent. The person who caught him was Han Xiao, and the person who completed his ideals was also Han Xiao. His feelings were extremely complicated and tangled. In the end, all the tangled feelings turned into a calm relief in the face of fate. It turned into a sincere thank you. Thank you. Han Xiao was a little surprised. He nodded and did not say anything. At this point, he felt that there was nothing more to talk about. He turned around and was about to leave the cell. At this time, the Darkstar leader suddenly spoke. "Please wait a moment. I have one last request, and it is also my only request." Han Xiao stopped in his tracks and turned around in confusion. "What else do you want to say?" The Darkstar leader slowly said, "You rose to power in just 10 years. I have studied all your achievements, and I think that you have the bloodline of a warrior race. You can absorb a part of the opponent's abilities by killing them. That is why your strength improved so quickly." "So?" Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. This was not a secret, and he had never thought of hiding it. Those who were observant would naturally discover it. However, no one knew that it was because of the player interface. They would only attribute it to his talent. The Darkstar leader took a deep breath. "Rather than being executed by Ghidorah, I would rather die in your hands. You are more qualified to judge me than them." Furthermore, the Darkstar leader's tone was relieved. "This is the only thing I can give in return." Han Xiao was shocked. A notification suddenly popped up on the interface. You have triggered the unique hidden mission, Darkstar leader's final wish. Mission introduction. You have destroyed the Darkstar, but you have also completed the mission of the Dark Star. The Dark Star leader wishes to die in your hands and offer his abilities to you. Mission requirements: kill the Dark Star leader. A hidden mission. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. He had once received a mission to defeat the Germinal organization leader, and the reward was also 2 abilities. He had obtained a molding talent from it, and that was how he had started the path to becoming a boss. The Dark Star leader was also a boss of a main storyline. This unique mission was a pleasant surprise of this trip, and it made his heart pound. Han Zhao looked at him deeply. He raised his right hand, and more than 10 lightning, chain-like mechanical force shot out from his palm. They disappeared into the void and connected to the blacklight stealth warehouse far away at the dock. He then apostolized the powerful mechanical soldiers in the warehouse. An endless stream of energy flowed into Han Zhao's body through the mechanical force connection. His energy rank rose steadily, and his aura seemed to have solidified. Psionic energy bubbles appeared from his palm, highly compressed and exuding a terrifying energy. "I promise you," Han Zhao said with a deep voice. The Dark Star leader let out a deep breath, dispelled the remaining energy defense in his body, and slowly closed his eyes. Outside the cell, the warden was pacing back and forth, waiting for Han Zhao to come out. At this time, a violent explosion suddenly came from his cell, and the entire prison seemed to shake. Boom! The warden was the closest, and his ears were almost deafened. His expression changed drastically, and he thought that an accident had happened. He hurriedly shouted, "Your Excellency Black Star, what happened to you?" he called out to Han Zhao while opening the cell door. The moment the cell door was opened, he saw the situation inside, and his shout was stuck in his throat. He saw broken limbs all over the floor, and the ground and walls were covered in blood and flesh. It was as if someone had exploded from the inside out. Han Zhao had a psionic shield in front of him, and the blood did not stain his body. A head was rolling on the ground. The warden took a closer look, and it was the Dark Star leader. You. The warden was shocked. He begged me to kill him. Since you want to execute him anyway, let me do it for you. Han Zhao deactivated his psionic shield, glanced at the warden, and walked out of the cell, leaving the warden in a daze. The Dark Star leader was an important prisoner. Looking at the blood all over the floor, the warden did not know what to do. He asked his adjutant to receive Han Zhao on his behalf, and he endured the discomfort and hurriedly reported to his superiors. The warden thought that he was going to be unlucky this time, but when his superiors heard that it was Han Zhao who did it, they did not have any intention of pursuing the matter. With Han Zhao's current position in God Aura, killing a death row prisoner was not a problem at all. Strength was privilege. Moreover, the Dark Star leader was Han Zhao's trophy, and God Aura was not so pedantic. They would not destroy their good relationship with Han Zhao over such a small matter. It could be said that in God Aura, Han Zhao could almost do whatever he wanted. The warden was secretly shocked by Han Zhao's influence, afraid that his actions just now would make Han Zhao unhappy. He hurriedly rushed back to the dock and made it in time for the last journey. He sent Han Zhao onto the spaceship and watched him leave the prison. Han Zhao set the spaceship on autopilot, then went to the training room, opened the interface to check the mission, and receive the reward. You have completed Dark Star Leader's final wish. You have received 15,000 EXP. You have received 1 random reward. Han Zhao nodded. His current level was too high. Although 150 million EXP was not a small amount, it was just a drop in the ocean. He stored the random reward as usual. Now, there were a total of 3 random reward chances on the interface. He was very confident in his luck, so he planned to store them up and wait until he completed the Bloodline mission. The mission completion card was not a rare reward, and he might not need to touch Ding to get one. The final reward was the highlight. You have received a reward. Draw 2 abilities, skills/talents of the leader of the Dark Star organization. Tip: the leader of the Dark Star organization is a mage. Some of the abilities have been automatically adjusted according to your class. Randomizing. Randomizing complete. Please select one from the following 5 options as the reward. 1. Advanced Free Element Affinity. Talent. plus 80% energy recovery speed. 2. Esoteric training, talent. Your mind has traveled through 100 secondary dimensions and been baptized by space-time. Plus 20% mental resistance, plus 10% MYS, plus 5% INT. 3. Esoteric vision, ability, plus 25% MYS. Duration, 10 minutes. Cool down, 25 minutes. Cost, 450 energy. 4. Painful vengeance, ability. You can use pain to stimulate the potential of your cells and exert strength beyond your limit. Every time you lose 3% of your HP, you can use melee attacks to deal normal damage equivalent to 1. 5% of your HP. Cost, 300 energy. The average quality of the abilities drawn this time is not bad. Han Xiao nodded. The spells of mages were driven by magic and were not compatible with those of mechanics. Therefore, most of the spells could not be drawn. Only a small portion of the abilities could be adjusted and turned into a universal ability. This way, he could eliminate a large number of low-level spells of the Dark Star leader and increase the chances of drawing a good ability. Chapter 703. Mystic Vision was of little use, and Advanced Free Elemental Affinity was not of much use either. Getting hit to recover mana was the way to go, and the efficiency was much higher than this talent. Furthermore, Han Xiao did not lack mana due to apostolization. Esoteric refinement definitely increased his mental resistance and intelligence, but it was a pity that the increase was too small. In terms of mental resistance, he had advanced mental fortitude. After apostolization, he could absorb energy to recover his mana. In terms of intelligence, he had research theory, and battlefield rationality could increase his intelligence by up to 15%. Other than that, he also had the large Medal of Honor, won against 10,000 men, and while esoteric refinement was all-round, the increase was average. Han Xiao felt that the last two abilities were more interesting. Painful Vengeance matched his tankiness perfectly. Every 3% of his health would be dealt damage equivalent to 5% of his health, which was equivalent to having an additional damage counter effect. It did not seem like much, but he had a terrifying recovery ability. His current health was around 200,000. If the enemy dealt him 300% damage, Painful Vengeance would trigger 100 times, dealing around 300,000 damage in total. Even if the damage was reduced by the enemy's resistance, it would still be a decent amount of damage. Furthermore, his health would continue to increase as he leveled up. Han Xiao felt that this ability should be the modified form of the Chain of Pain. While it could only be triggered in close combat, it was perfect for dealing with those with sudden attacks. After all, the risk of shoot at me was not small, and it might not be able to control the enemy. With a damage counter effect, it would at least make the enemy wary. Among the Calamity Grade Supers, Han Xiao's strength was already at the peak. He had no choice but to consider a Beyond Grade A battle. With the attack power of a Beyond Grade A, he did not have to worry about his health dropping slowly. He could stack the thickest armor and take the most vicious hits. With a damage counter skill, he could increase the benefits of taking a beating. Furthermore, after obtaining the apostolization ability, his close combat strength increased as well. He could use it as one of his normal combat modes again, and there would definitely be a chance to trigger Painful Vengeance. Han Xiao had always wanted to give up on taking a beating, but he helplessly realized that he would not be able to escape the fate of being a main tank. Taking a beating was still the most worthwhile. What made his eyes light up was the Luck Curse. He believed that this was the most valuable ability in this reward. Originally, this was a mutually destructive skill. Both the target and the user's luck would be reduced by 90%. However, with his pitiful luck quantifier, it didn't matter whether it was reduced or not. Could be reduced to 0. Han Xiao did not believe that there was anyone with lower luck than him. He was very confident in this aspect. It's not that I'm targeting anyone, but in terms of luck, everyone here is lucky, and only I'm the younger brother. Han Xiao took a fancy to the Luck Curse at first glance. It had no negative effects, but it could greatly weaken the opponent's luck. Wasn't this just pulling the enemy to the same level as himself, and then using his rich experience to defeat him? She was simply a perfect match for him. Perfect. The corners of Han Zhao's mouth curled up slightly as he confirmed the option. You have received painful revenge. You have received luck curse. After closing his eyes and feeling it for a while, Han Zhao opened his eyes and exhaled. He was in a good mood. The Dark Star leader gave me 2 decent abilities. Indeed, an honest man like me will always have good karma. Han Zhao rubbed his hands and chuckled. His face was not red at all. After a long period of accumulation, he had already formed a powerful combat system that could sweep through calamity grades. However, he did not become arrogant because of this. He knew better than anyone that all beyond grade as were abnormal. Ordinary people would never be able to become beyond grade as. Every one of them was a boss among bosses. His system was far from the most abnormal among the beyond grade as. For example, Yes God was almost omnipotent. Thousand Shadows' ability was extremely strange. Aim's force field could both attack and defend, and the Tyrant could pierce through a star with his body, not to mention the famous Mecha Empire. The biggest characteristic of his current combat system was that it could take a beating and not die. It still needed to be perfected. Next, as long as I wait for the Bloodline mission to be completed, I could try to accumulate mission completion cards. 7 years is plenty of time. As long as I complete the level 200 promotion, I'll be able to spend all the experience I accumulated in version 2.0 and turn it all into true combat strength, Han Zhao pondered. Yesterday, under the supervision of the Amethyst civilization, the Ghidorah discrimination transformation campaign came to a successful end. Serbia V gave an important speech on this matter. He believes that both pure blood and mixed blood should adhere to the principle of the Ghidorah community and not cut each other off because of bloodlines. In the future, there should be no distinction between each other and work together to build Ghidorah and fight for the civilization. According to insiders, Serbia V faced all kinds of obstacles during the transformation process, and his reputation fell to the bottom. Fortunately, after this project was completed, his achievements were finally recognized, and his support rate rose to the top. The Amethyst civilization believes that in the long history of Ghidorah, Serbia V is undoubtedly one of the most courageous leaders. All right, that's the Garten Star System Express for today. Let's beep. Serbia V turned off the virtual screen and looked at Han Zhao and Rosalind across the guest table with a smug expression. The plan is finally completed. Thank you very much for your help. Rosalind smiled reservedly and took a sip of Ghidorah's specialty drink. She had a nonchalant attitude that said, "This is nothing." Han Zhao, who was at the side, almost wanted to give her a thumbs up. What an expert. She's so good at acting cool. She's so good at it. Every wrinkle on Serbia V's face seemed to be grinning. He could be said to be very proud of himself. After solving the problem that had plagued Ghidorah for many years, he could predict that he would definitely leave his name in history and be written in the textbooks as a hero of Ghidorah. This could be said to be his greatest achievement. After all, as the saying went, great people who were not written in the textbooks did not have souls. And this opportunity was given to him by Black Star in front of him. Serbia V could not be more grateful. As for the return, let's follow the agreement we made at the beginning. First, a large amount of money and resources. Second, more channels to purchase resources. Third, more mining rights to resource planets. We will provide the equipment and manpower. Fourth, the right to borrow the military factories. Use Ghidorah's military factories to mass-produce spaceships for the Black Star Corps. Fifth, the right to transfer technical personnel to train professionals for you. Lastly, political support. Serbia V said one by one. No problem. Han Zhao listened carefully with a serious face. No matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. These were all the conditions that had been discussed. As for resources and money, he did not care too much about them now that he had a lot of mines at home. The main thing was that the right to borrow the military factories and transfer technical personnel were not bad. The productivity of a star system civilization was not to be underestimated. Borrowing their hundreds of large military factories all over the star system to produce spaceships was very efficient. Transferring technical personnel could also help the Black Star Corps cultivate exclusive research talents, which was beneficial for long-term development. However, compared to the rewards, Han Shao still valued the Bloodline mission the most. No one had completed it in his previous life, and it was also the first Grade S mission that he had completed. The Bloodline mission on the interface flashed and showed completed. Han Shao patiently did not check the interface immediately. He chatted with Serbia V for a while before leaving with Rosalind. After the two of them left, Serbia V stood up and looked at the clear sky outside the window, thinking about the bright future. At the same time, Rudy's mood was the same as Serbia V's. He was full of anticipation for the future. The changes in his life were very obvious. After the discrimination transformation campaign, he realized that when he walked on the streets, there was no longer the cold and distant discrimination. His colleagues became friendly, and his wife's family became more friendly. His boss gave him important jobs and seemed to have the intention of putting him in an important position. His child was no longer a silent person in school and had made many new friends. Everything was getting better. His passion for life was reignited. Thank you, Serbia V. Thank you, Amethyst Civilization. Thank you, Black Star, who captured the leader of Dark Star. Rudy was grateful. Han Shao boarded the spaceship with Rosalind and embarked on the return journey. After entering hyperdrive mode, Han Shao was about to go to the training room to check the rewards when Rosalind stopped him with a curious look on her face. Black Star, do you really think that my brainwashing can completely change the Ghidorah's bloodline discrimination and not cause a backlash in the future? How would I know? That's none of my business. Then why do you trust me so much? Rosalind clicked her tongue. Even I'm not sure if this plan will work. You don't know the details of my Esper ability, but I feel like you have more confidence than me. I can predict. If I say you can do it, then you can. Han Shao was in a hurry to settle the rewards, so he was not in the mood to be arrogant with her. He used this tried and tested excuse to brush her off and hurried into the training room, leaving Rosalind behind in deep thought. After closing the door of the training room, Han Shao could not wait to open the interface and look at the notification of the mission reward again. Bloodline completed. Mission rating B. Good. You have received 125,000 EXP, 3 random rewards, plus 30,000 Ghidorah contribution points, and 10 eternal dungeon crystals Ghidorah's past. You have received 1 political asset. Wow. 250 million EXP. This is 7 to 8 times more than the Dark Star leader's final mission. This is comparable to the level of the mission rewards in version 5.0. Han Shao was pleasantly surprised. This amount of EXP was not considered little to him. The best part was that he was given 3 random reward chances, which was equivalent to completing 3 Grade A missions with high ratings. He was currently in need of accumulating random rewards to draw a mission completion card. The thing about S-rank missions was that there were very few clues. Before the mission was completed, even the reward would not be revealed. This was the first time Han Shao had learned about the mission reward. Perhaps it was because he had cleared the mission in an evil way, so the mission rating was only good. After all, the foundation of the brainwashing method was not stable. However, if he had to clear the mission using the normal method, Han Shao would not have been able to do anything. Being able to complete this mission was already a surprise. 30,000 Ghidorah contribution points could be exchanged for a lot of good equipment for players, but it was limited in its use to him. It was better than nothing. The 10 Eternal Dungeon Crystals were good stuff. Eternal meant that they were not one-time consumables and could be used repeatedly. There was a limit to the number of times they could be used per day. Ghidorah's Past, Instance Dungeon, level 60 to level 180. The gap was huge, which meant that it was a super large instance dungeon. The rewards would definitely be very generous. Han Shao had no use for it, but the player guilds would definitely buy these eternal dungeon crystals at all costs. This would mean that the guilds would have a large instance dungeon that could be cleared repeatedly. It could provide a continuous stream of trials for the club's professional players, allowing them to level up faster and have more resources. Although the instance dungeon creation right of the NPC template could create instance dungeons continuously, it could not create eternal dungeon crystals. Moreover, the guilds would definitely want to have their own stable instance dungeons. Rich people like to buy peace of mind with money. Han Xiao was mainly interested in the EXP of the players. He did not lack money, so it did not matter if he sold it or not. However, using these eternal dungeon crystals as a high-level item in the faction would help attract players. Han Xiao looked at the last reward, 1 political asset. Political asset. 1 Godora civilization. You are loved by the people of Godora. When trading with the people of Godora, you will be able to buy goods at a lower price and sell them at a higher price. Godora is willing to listen to your requests. You can directly make suggestions to the Godora government. According to the rationality of the suggestion, the Godora civilization has a small chance of accepting your suggestion. This is one of the symbols of political influence. Your achievements are praised in the universe. When interacting with certain forces or people, plus 30% favorability. You have valuable EXP, plus 30% experience gain in all forms. Note, the condition for the above effects to take effect is to maintain a relationship with Godora, reverence. It really is this thing. I thought I saw wrongly. Han Xiao was overjoyed. Political asset was similar to legendary points, but it was much rarer. In his previous life, he had only seen screenshots of it on the forums. He looked at the NPC template and saw that his reward limit had increased by 60%. The effect of political asset was much better than legendary points. In his previous life, Han Xiao had also completed S-grade missions, but they were either large-scale missions that involved many people or challenge missions that involved fighting and killing. It was his first time experiencing something as troublesome as bloodline. The benefits of political asset were huge. To Han Xiao, he felt that the most useful effect was the plus 30% favorability and experience gain. As long as he met the triggering conditions of political asset, he would be able to enjoy the bonus forever. These 2 effects were also applicable to players. It was very troublesome to obtain political asset, and it required a lot of time to complete a lot of miscellaneous procedures. However, these 2 effects were compensatory, and the long-term returns were much higher than the investment. Imagine a player with a bonus of 1 political asset. It was equivalent to him spending the same amount of time doing missions, and his experience gain would be higher than others. His level would always be ahead, and he would have more experience to learn and level up skills. In the long run, the gap between him and others would become bigger and bigger. In his previous life, Han Xiao had seen many guilds fight for political asset for their professional players. Experience is not Aina's, and it is not a physical object. It cannot be traded between players. It says that all forms of experience gain can enjoy the bonus. Then, will the experience I gain from players also enjoy a 30% bonus? Han Xiao was excited. He had the NPC template, and he could gain experience from players through teaching skills. Experience only existed on the interface and did not exist in physical objects. Since there were items like the double experience card, it was not impossible to gain an extra 30% experience out of nowhere. Chapter 704. Putting away the mission reward notification. Han Xiao looked at the random reward chances he had accumulated. Including the bloodline reward, he had a total of 6 chances. 6 chances should be quite high. Since I have enough, let's give it a try. Han Xiao pondered for a while and decided to calculate the random reward. Luck affected the drop rate of all kinds of good items, but the mission completion card was a reward with a lower value. Han Xiao did not want to wait until he returned to the headquarters to touch Fu Ding before drawing the random reward. Drawing complete. The reward type you receive this time is item. Please choose one from the following 3 rewards. 1. Double EXP card, X2, 2. Blank character summon card, X1, 3. Large EXP crystal, X3. Nothing came out the first time. Han Xiao was used to it and did not change his expression. He looked at it and chose the blank character summon card. He would use it when he played with Ames another day. Drawing. Drawing complete. The reward type you receive this time is item. Please choose one from the following 3 rewards. 1. Energy Enhancement Halo, Fashion 2. Random Dungeon Crystal, X1 3. Esper Ability Awakening Fluid, Normal. Han Shao clicked his tongue. He had gotten an item reward twice in a row, but he did not get a mission completion card. This was not good. The things I got this time are ordinary. Han Shao touched his chin with a helpless expression. Sure enough, touching Fu Ding and not touching Fu Ding had a different effect. The lucky halo was really strong, and he really wanted it. Seeing that there was nothing good, Han Shao chose the Energy Enhancement Special Effect Halo, a cheap Halo-type item. Its effect was to strengthen the light effect caused by the release of energy, making the light cannon appear thicker and bigger. It looked scary, but it did not have any practical use. All it had was to make it look cool. Drawing. Drawing complete. The type of reward you receive this time is talent. Please choose one from the following 3 rewards. 1. Golden Ratio Body, plus 3% STR, plus 3% DX, plus 3% END, plus 75 CHA 2. Electric Eyes, plus 25 CHA, plus 5 LUK 3. Sadist, plus 120 MYS, 50 CHA. What the hell is this? Han Zhao's eyes twitched. This was the good thing about having an unlucky face. He could always see strange things. The second and third items were of no use to him. Han Shao chose Golden Ratio Body. It was better than nothing. He sighed helplessly and began the 4th random reward. Drawing. Drawing complete. Please choose one of the following 3 rewards. Mission Completion Card, X1, 2. Small Experience Crystal, X13, 3. Race Sublimation Option Reorganization Card Fragments, X2. Han Zhao's eyes lit up. After spending 4 random rewards, he finally got a Mission Completion Card. That's it. After choosing the Mission Completion Card, Han Shao patiently used the remaining 2 random rewards. He got 2 million EXP and a skill Skull Crusher, which increased critical strike rate by 40% when attacking the enemy's head. Cool down, 8 seconds. 1 mission completion card after 6 tries. That's fine. At least it solved my urgent need. Han Shao heaved a sigh of relief. As long as he got 1 mission completion card, he would be able to complete the current promotion mission. After completing the promotion mission, he would have used up all the EXP. He was not in a hurry. He still had 7 years to slowly collect more mission completion cards. You have used mission completion card. Self-challenge, calculating. Calculation complete. Level 200 promotion mission completed. Promotion successful. END bonus increased. 1 END equals 145 HP equals 155 stamina. Han Zhao's heart skipped a beat. It was as if hot lava was pumped out of his body, filling his entire body in an instant. He took a deep breath and felt as if his body was melting and his cells were undergoing a subtle refinement. The pain lasted for a while before slowly fading away. Han Shao panted heavily, sweating profusely. However, he looked very energetic, as if he had just gone through a workout. He was full of energy, and his whole body was steaming with heat. His EXP was finally depleted. The EXP that he had accumulated was just a number, and it only had value when it was converted into combat power. The EXP that he had accumulated in version 2.0 was almost completely depleted. After digesting all of it, Han Shao felt the power surging in his body. This was his current peak state. I've finally spent all my EXP. Han Shao looked at the notification and realized that his grade bonus had also changed. Once he reached the A rank standard of 10,000 energy rank, he would receive an A rank bonus. After that, the bonus would increase with every 10,000 ONA. The original effect was plus 10 END, plus 8 all resistances, plus 10% highest attribute, plus 5% other attributes, plus 30 free attribute points, and plus 5 potential points. After the grade bonus was upgraded, it became plus 15 END, plus 12 all resistances, plus 15% highest attribute points, plus 8% other attributes, plus 80 free attribute points, and plus 10 potential points. More than half of the free attribute points were invested in intelligence, and Han Xiao took out 40 points and invested them in END. Currently, the reward for END was very high, and he had accumulated a large amount of intelligence by investing all his points into intelligence in the early stages. With the bonuses from his various talents, his END was already very high. Furthermore, after the battle with ES God, Han Xiao was quite wary of the attack power of a beyond grade A super, so it was not a loss to invest some points into END. He then browsed through his attribute interface. Total level 207 main class, mechanic race, void distorter, human form, attributes, 504 STR, 946 DX, 1040 END, 2859 INT, 432 MYS, 214 CHA, 1 LUK free attribute points, 0 potential points, 24 health, 251780 stamina, 209320 energy, 28,410 LV, 12 LV, 12 energy bonus, plus 169 STR, plus 239 DX, plus 269 END, plus 336 INT, plus 206 MYS, plus 32520 stamina limit, plus 352% machinery affinity, super electromagnetic induction, energy rank, 24668 grade, a plus grade A bonus, plus 15 END, plus 12 all resistances, plus 15% highest attribute, plus 8% other attributes, plus 80 free attribute points, plus 10 potential points. As a mechanic, you're top-notch. As a tank, you're top-notch. Are you really not going to consider abandoning machinery for martial arts? TSK, machinery is the way of the king. Learning martial arts will not save the Chinese. Han Xiao snorted. In order to complete his class advancement, he had spent a total of 3 years. However, from the success of his class advancement to his current promotion, it had been extremely smooth. This promotion was not a race evolution, so the change was not huge. However, his health had increased by a quarter compared to before the promotion. The higher his level, the greater the difference in health. Han Xiao did not dare imagine how tanky the tyrant was. Not only was his defense terrifying, but he also probably had a few million health points. Level 207. I'm even closer to beyond grade A. I've spent all the experience I've accumulated. With the experience level of version 2.0, I might be able to level up 4 or 5 times in 7 years. If I want to level up quickly, I'll have to wait for the players of version 3.0 to return. Han Xiao thought to himself. After the Bloodline mission ended, Han Xiao returned to the headquarters to rest for a few days. Taking advantage of the fact that his holiday was not over yet, he flipped through the employment list of the Army's mercenary department and looked for suitable missions. The news of Black Star going out for missions quickly spread throughout the Colton Star cluster and shocked many organizations. With Han Xiao's current status, why would he need to personally take on missions? Furthermore, aren't you in a war? Why would you have the time to personally take on missions? Is the secret war so stressful for you? All the employers in the Colton Star cluster were excited. With Black Star's strength, what missions would he not be able to complete? All of a sudden, the business of the Black Star Corps' mercenary department increased by 3 times, all because of Han Xiao. The employers who successfully hired Han Xiao were flattered. Even though they were employers, they treated Han Xiao as if he was their boss, not daring to neglect this person who had the potential to become beyond grade A. Han Xiao's current strength could only be described with one word: reckless. Be it exterminating the rebels, clearing the beasts, or hunting down the galactic pirates, he would directly descend and crush the enemy. The enemy would not even be able to put up a decent resistance. Han Xiao spent more time on the road than fighting, which made people tremble in fear. Because Han Xiao was acting alone, he thought that Clint would use the same trick and send people to assassinate him. However, after doing 7 or 8 missions in a row, nothing happened. Not even a hair of the assassins could be seen. The incident with Darkstar made Clint suffer a huge loss. Now, They were like birds that were startled by the mere twang of a bough. Seeing Han Xiao wandering outside alone, a special think tank team immediately started making guesses. With Black Star status, there was no need for him to personally take on missions. Therefore, it was obvious he's trying to lure us to assassinate him. He's definitely trying to replicate what happened to the Dark Star leader and find a chance to push the blame to us. This person is evil. Therefore, the Clint sneered as they watched Han Xiao wandering outside. Humph, his intentions are too obvious. We've seen through him. We definitely won't fall for it. Furthermore, Clint had just suffered a political blow, so they wanted to keep a low profile for a while. Clint could not think of a way to threaten Han Xiao, so they did not intend to assassinate Han Xiao for the time being. This was also one of the reasons. While Han Xiao was doing missions and accumulating random rewards, the various departments of the Black Star Corps were also developing steadily. They had applied for many technicians from Godora to come to the Black Star Corps to train special talents. The first investment for Vilna was used up in 3 months. Reynolds followed Han Zhao's request and took out 150 million anas for a second investment. At the port of Floating Dragon Island, 1,000 battleships were docked there. They were arranged neatly according to the different battleship models, with 2 huge flagships as the core of the fleet. The Galactic Pirates' spaceships were squeezed to the corner of the dock. They trembled, but did not dare to object. This was because the exterior armor of these 1,000 battleships had a common pattern, a light green void dragon head. Below the dragon head was a throne, and a ring surrounded this symbol. This was the symbol of Floating Dragon's second field team. Vilna and a few assistants accompanied Aesop and Jenny at the dock to inspect this team. We now have 1,000 battleships produced by a star system civilization and 300,000 Black Star troopers. Among them, there are 450 Grade B supers, 240,000 Grade C supers, and the rest are Grade D and below. They are mainly in management, logistics, transportation, and so on. Vilna introduced the current size of Floating Dragon's second field team to the 2 of them. It's only been half a year, and you've already achieved such results. Well done, Aesop praised. It's mainly because of Black Star's help. It's difficult for me to even earn money by myself, Vilna said. How much did he spend? Jenny asked with a frown. 70 million anas. A few days ago, he invested another 150 million. Vilna swallowed. Even though she was a calamity-grade super, she could not help but be stunned by Han Zhao's wealth. He's really willing to spend money. Jenny's brows relaxed. She snorted softly and touched her receding hairline helplessly. The maintenance cost of these troops is about 8.5 million anas a month. Black Star is paying for it now. This maintenance cost, Vilna asked carefully. It's a little expensive, Jenny said subconsciously. Suddenly, she paused. She suddenly remembered that she had almost never given Han Xiao any funding or maintenance fees. Although the Black Star Corps was a field team of Floating Dragon, they had always been responsible for their own profits and losses. They even had to give her a portion of their profits every month. Because the Black Star Corps had almost never asked for funding from Floating Dragon, she rarely thought about it. Only now did she realize that the Black Star Corps was actually very worry-free. They were so passionate about expanding their business because they wanted to earn maintenance fees. Jenny shook her head and felt that she was really not a good manager. Black Star helped you build the troops at all costs, Aesop said. It seems like he has made up his mind. Vilna, you have to think of a way to create income for this army. In the future, the maintenance cost of this army will be borne by us. We don't need too many field teams, or the cost will be too high. You can't just accept Black Star's funding. You don't have his ability to earn money, so you have to learn to control the scale. Oh, okay. Vilna hurriedly nodded. Jenny, who had been silent for a while, sighed. She could not help but say something from the bottom of her heart. Black Star is really a rare talent. Aesop nodded, indicating that he agreed. He paused for a while before helplessly adding, "It's a pity that he grew too quickly. A person with such talent will not serve others forever." Chapter 705. As Aesop, Vilna, and Jenny were chatting, A spaceship that the three of them could not be more familiar with came from afar. It was Han Zhao's blacklight stealth. Why is he back? The three of them were stunned. They were just talking about Han Zhao and Blackstar, and Blackstar was already here? The blacklight stealth squeezed into the dock of floating Dragon Island. The hatch opened, and Han Zhao landed on the ground. He glanced at the galactic pirates, trembling like quails in the corner of the dock, and curled his lips. He then saw Aesop and the others and walked over to greet them. Yo, you're all here. Why are you back? Jenny snorted. I haven't seen you in a long time. I miss you, especially that mesmerizing hairline of yours. It makes me think about it day and night. I can't even sleep well. By the way, do you have time to sleep recently? Han Zhao raised his eyebrows. After being together for so long, he knew Jenny's G-spot very well and knew how to make her angry. You're such an asshole. Jenny clenched her teeth. She did not want to talk to Han Zhao anymore. She turned around and stomped on the ground as if the ground was Han Zhao's face. She wanted to poke a hole in floating Dragon Island with her heels. After watching Jenny leave, Han Zhao then looked at Vilna. What were you guys doing just now? We were inspecting the second field team. Vilna stuttered, her face blushing. This team was built with Han Zhao's money. Aesop had just told her that this was a sign that Han Zhao had made up his mind to leave. Now that the main character had suddenly appeared, she felt uneasy and nervous, as if she had been caught red-handed. Aesop had been through a lot, so he was not embarrassed at all. He changed the topic and said, Are you looking for Ames? She doesn't know you're back. She should be training her Esper ability in the palace now. Go find her. Han Zhao nodded and rubbed Vilna's head. Seeing that her face was so red that it was almost burning, he left with satisfaction. Although Vilna was a calamity grade, this girl was too soft and cute. Han Zhao could not help but want to rub her head and tease her every time he saw her. After all, she was his future successor, so he did not hold back. He had just finished a mission, and floating Dragon Island happened to be nearby. He decided to take a look around and use the blank character summon card to record Ames's ability. On the way to the palace, Han Zhao met Gila and Aurora, and his eyes sparkled. Hela was wearing a tight red combat suit made of high-strength nanofiber material. Compared to 3 years ago, her breasts were bigger, and her figure was hotter. Her appearance and temperament were getting closer and closer to the goddess of death in Han Zhao's previous life. She was very cold and indifferent. Her cold and seductive face had a contrast of seductive charm. Aurora had also grown a lot taller. Her bone structure was still smaller than Hela's, but the amount of milk they had was about the same. It was obvious that she had developed her Esper ability very well. Her skin was white and tender, and she was full of energy. Clearly, she had overnourished herself. The two of them had sweat all over their foreheads. They were walking out of the palace as if they had just finished a training session. Seeing Han Zhao, the two of them stopped at the same time. Wow, are you here to see us? Aurora was pleasantly surprised. She jumped into Han Zhao's arms and kept twisting. Hela's eyes twitched, and she slowly walked over. All right, you're big enough. Han Zhao hurriedly pushed Aurora's head away and sized the two of them up with a gratified expression. Looks like you two have trained well under Ames. The Esper ability potential of the two sisters had reached grade S, and their growth was very fast. The energy waves they emitted had reached grade B standard. Hela's was more powerful, and Han Zhao estimated that Hela's energy rank was around 6,000. In the original storyline of version 3.0, she reached the calamity grade. Although she has not increased her strength through slaughter, with her potential and hard work, the chances of her reaching the calamity grade in the next 7 years are quite high. Han Zhao paused for a moment, and he rubbed Aurora's head while asking Hela, when you reach the calamity grade, come back and help me. With the battle records from his previous life as a foundation, Gila's combat strength would definitely not be weak. When she reached grade A, she would definitely become a capable assistant. Furthermore, Aurora's healing ability was astonishing. With such a powerful healer, he would be able to effectively reduce the casualties of the officers. Okay, Hela nodded. This time, her answer was very decisive, without the slightest bit of arrogance. I thought you would hesitate for a while. After all, It's very safe here with Ames. Haven't you always prioritized safety? Hello was expressionless. This is what we agreed on in the first place. When I reach the calamity grade, I will naturally be able to protect Aurora. We can always stay in one place. Since we're in the universe, of course we have to see every corner of the world. Furthermore, she has a certain level of ability to protect herself. Han Xiao sized Hela up and said, "Why do I feel like you don't mean what you say?" Humph. Hela turned her face away. She trained hard not only to protect Aurora in the more dangerous galaxy, but also to obtain the qualifications to help Han Xiao as soon as possible to repay his kindness. She had a strong personality, and she would definitely repay what she owed others. Furthermore, working for Han Xiao meant that she could see him often. Cultivating on Floating Dragon Island meant that she could only see Han Xiao once in a while. She missed him quite a bit. "Are you here to look for Her Excellency Dragon Emperor?" Hela asked. "Yes. She should be in the garden. Go and look for her." Hela lowered her eyes. Han Xiao was about to walk into the palace when Hela suddenly called out to him from behind. She could not help but ask, "How strong have you become?" She had not reached Han Xiao's level yet. All the news was exaggerated, so she had always been curious about Han Xiao's true strength. I can probably beat 100,000 of you even if I give you a handicap of 2 hands." Han Xiao smiled. Hela clenched her teeth in secret. She had known Han Xiao the longest, but now she could not even catch up to Han Xiao's footsteps. Her competitive spirit was stimulated again. Arriving at the garden, Ames was floating in the air, looking at a dim star in the sky with her hands behind her back. Hearing the footsteps, she looked down and slowly landed in front of Han Xiao. Her soft long hair and thin black dress fluttered in the wind. "You're back, Black Star." Ames smiled and praised. "I heard about you funding the second field team. You did very well. It's easy to do anything with money." Han Xiao chuckled and secretly used the blank character card on Ames. A new character card was instantly formed, becoming Ames's character summon card. "Why did you come back to find me?" Ames blinked. "Can I come back to see you if I don't have anything?" Han Xiao naturally would not say it was for the blank character card. Ames suddenly sighed. "You're becoming less and less reserved in front of me. Isn't that because we're very familiar with each other?" Han Xiao laughed. "Is that all?" Ames stared into Han Xiao's eyes and smiled faintly. Black Star was getting stronger and stronger, and his status was constantly increasing. The gap between the two of them was rapidly shrinking. Black Star was becoming more and more casual when facing her, no longer calling himself a subordinate. Instead, it was more like an equal. As this thought flashed through her mind, Ames suddenly said, "How long has it been since the last time I visited your territory?" Han Xiao was stunned. He thought for a while and said, "A few years." "Why?" The last time Ames visited the Black Star Corps was when version 2.0 had just started. It was at that time that she took in the Hela sisters as her students. "It's only been a few years, and your organization has grown to this extent. Black Star, bring me to your territory again." Ames tilted her head, and there was a smile in her eyes that Han Xiao could not understand. Han Xiao was a little surprised, but he was also used to Ames's casual personality. After thinking for a while, it seemed like there was no reason to reject her. He felt that Ames was most likely thinking of doing something because she was too bored, so he nodded. "Okay, since you want to be the leader for an inspection, I'll accompany you. It just so happens that I'm on vacation recently. How about we go to the Black Star Corps headquarters?" "Okay, you decide." Ames smiled. The two of them left immediately. Aesop was still inspecting the troops at the dock and did not leave. When he saw that Han Xiao had only left for a short while before he took Ames away with him, he had a helpless expression on his face. Planet Golden Gates, outer space orbit, the Black Star Corps headquarters satellite. The Blacklight stealth returned to the headquarters, and the two of them alighted from a spaceship. Han Xiao brought Ames to tour the various areas of the headquarters. On the way, the Black Star Corps members who passed by all looked at them strangely. The rumors of the two of them splitting up had never disappeared. Seeing their commander appear together with Ames, many of them felt weird. At the moment, Ames was still the boss of the Black Star Corps, and it seemed like she was here for an inspection. Along the way, Han Xiao introduced the various areas, and Ames listened quietly. Very soon, they finished touring the entire headquarters and finally arrived at Han Zhao's office. At this time, all the officers of the Black Star Corps had been summoned by Han Xiao to meet Ames in the office and be inspected. The moment Ames entered, the officers of the Black Star Corps stood up and nodded to show their respect to a beyond grade A super. Ames looked around and saw Haluz and the others. She smiled and said, "I still remember the few of you. You're all Black Star's old subordinates. You're called Haluz, right?" Ames came before Haluz and nodded with a smile. "I can see your potential. You should be able to reach the Calamity grade." Haluz was overjoyed. He had been troubled by this matter for a long time, and now he felt much more relaxed. He trusted the judgment of a beyond grade A super. Ames then came before Erosia. Seeing that she was still so cold, she smiled and did not say anything. She then moved to Sylvia and patted Sylvia's head. "What a smart child. I feel that you have the potential to become a Calamity grade super too." Sylvia's eyes widened, and she felt weird. She always felt that Ames seemed to like guessing the potential of others. She did not know if it was her strange hobby. Ames stopped in front of each officer for a while and said a few words. The reactions of each officer were different. Fu Ding smiled gently. Harmon was confused. Reynold was serious. Rosalind was neither servile nor overbearing. And Carnby, Marion, and Missy Sec, the three Calamity grade supers who had come to join them, were trembling with excitement. Finally, she came before Loggy. Ames looked at him a few more times and said, "I didn't expect you to be the forbidden sorcerer commander under Austin. Sigh, what's the use of that? Didn't I still get fired?" Loggy sighed. He was used to seeing beyond grade as, so his attitude was the most casual among all the officers. It was obvious that he was a salted fish that had seen the world. Ames smiled and returned to Han Zhao's side. She had just inspected the officers, and none of them spoke. Their auras were all suppressed by Ames. "All right, Black Star, I'm going back." "You're leaving just like that?" Han Xiao was stunned. She had come all the way here to take a look. Wasn't she going to stay for a few days? "I've already seen what I wanted to see." Ames shook her head. The rise of the Black Star Corps was too fast. Observing the Black Star Corps was equivalent to observing Han Zhao's ambition. She had already figured out what she wanted to know and had an answer in her heart. "Maybe I'm really not suitable to be his leader." Han Zhao's eyes flashed, and he understood something. He sighed and had no choice but to disperse the officers and return to the dock with Ames. The two of them remained silent along the way. "Give me a spaceship, and I'll go back myself." "You don't have to make another trip," Ames said. "Okay, I'll get someone to arrange it." Han Xiao called the person in charge of the dock over and asked him to bring a spare spaceship over. The two of them waited for the spaceship at the dock. Ames suddenly spoke without even turning her head. "A few years ago, you informed me that you were going to participate in the secret war, but you didn't ask me for help. Why didn't you do that?" Han Xiao coughed and said, "Your identity is sensitive and not suitable to participate in the secret war. I informed you before, and you didn't stop me, so I took it as your silent consent. At that time, you didn't express any intention of interfering, so I didn't ask you for help. But why didn't you try? What does that mean?" Han Xiao frowned. He could only see the back of Ames' head. She still did not turn around, so he could only change the topic. "A few years ago, when I was ambushed by Clint, I asked you for help, but you didn't agree." Han Xiao was talking about the third round of the Prey mission. He had asked for Ames' help, but was rejected. "If you insisted at that time, I would still have agreed. If you insisted on asking me to join the secret war, I might not have rejected, although I don't like to get involved in these things," Ames said calmly. Han Xiao could not see her face, so he could only analyze from her tone. "You mean you want to interfere in the secret war? You don't need me anymore." Ames paused, changed the topic, and said calmly, "From the first day I met you, I've never seen you stop. Why? Are you playing riddles with me? When did you become so confusing?" Han Zhao's mouth twitched. He thought for a while and said helplessly, "It's not time to stop yet. You have the ability to stop, but I don't. What are you afraid of?" Han Zhao's eyes moved slightly, but he did not answer. At this time, a spaceship finally stopped in front of Ames. The cabin door opened, and the gangway was lowered, inviting her to board. Ames stretched lazily, and her clothes tightened, outlining her beautiful waist. She sighed and said softly, "I hope that you'll be willing to stop one day and look at the scenery along the way. No matter how big this universe is, there's an end to it, but ambition is endless." Then, she walked up the gangway, closed the cabin door, and blocked Han Zhao's view. She did not turn back, and her expression could not be seen. After watching the spaceship leave the orbit and turn into a stream of light that disappeared into the horizon, Han Zhao finally retracted his gaze, exhaled, and rubbed his temples. He felt that the current Ames had changed. Her temper was becoming more and more erratic. What did she start to change? Han Zhao pondered. The Red Empire and the Radiant Federation were fighting, and their influence spread across the entire galaxy. The various star fields were affected by the Crimson Tide, and chaos was brewing. The various star clusters in the Shattered Star Ring were also having battles of varying sizes. The Crimson Tide swept across the entire galaxy. In comparison, the chaos in the Shattered Star Ring was only the tip of the iceberg. The situation of the Secret War was many times more complicated than in Han Zhao's previous life. There were even more participants, and there were even many accidents that did not happen before. However, on the whole, Bloodshed Land and Section 0 were still evenly matched. Scenes of ion cannons, battleships being destroyed, and supers slaughtering each other happened one after another. Countless battles, negotiations, assassinations, looting, and betrayals took place one after another. War was also an opportunity. No one fought for the sake of fighting. The Black Star Core absorbed nutrients from it and expanded steadily. Han Zhao was active in the Secret War and became the brightest star on this stage. The situation was like a river that could never be stopped or reversed. The secret war between Purple Crystal and Clint in the Shattered Star Ring also became more and more intense in this chaos that affected the entire universe. Chapter 706. Galaxy Calendar, Year 704, 17th of July. Black Star Corps Headquarters. Dang, dang, dang. In the bright alloy corridor, a tall silhouette with long hair down to her waist was walking leisurely. Her alloy combat boots made sonorous footsteps as they stepped on the ground. She was wearing a female light armor-type mech with purple edges that only covered her vital parts. It was lined with a pitch-black, high-strength nanofiber technology bodysuit that showed off her graceful figure. Her waist twisted as she walked. The surface of the black bodysuit gradually lit up with blue-green matrix patterns following the movement of her muscles. The patterns were especially dense around her waist. A few soldiers of the Black Star Army walked out from the corner, wearing the same Black Star standard armor. When they saw this woman from afar, their faces turned solemn, and they stood up straight to salute her. "Your Excellency, Chief Administrative Officer." Her footsteps paused, and a polite smile appeared on her beautiful face. It was like 100 flowers blooming, radiating light in all directions, making the hearts of the few people palpitate. After she walked far away, the few of them came back to their senses. So beautiful, as expected of the #1 beauty of the Black Star Corps. If only she would like me. Dream on. Her Excellency Sylvia is a Calamity-grade super and the chief apprentice of the Army Commander. How could she like you? The ears of the woman who had walked far away moved slightly. Hearing their conversation, a look of helplessness appeared in her eyes. It was Sylvia. Over the past 7 years, she had worked hard to cultivate, struggling to survive. After many hardships, suffering, the potential hidden deep in her genes had been squeezed out, and she had finally achieved what she should have achieved in version 3.0 of his previous life, stepping into the Calamity grade. With her strength and fame, she became the chief administrative officer of the Black Star Corps. At the same time, she could also say that she was the chief apprentice of the Black Star Corps. Others would no longer joke about this title and would acknowledge it. A Calamity-grade super had a long lifespan, and the 7 years had carved out a beautiful face for Sylvia. She had completely matured. Her long hair fluttered in the wind, and she was a natural beauty that could score 9. 5 out of 10. She was beautiful, strong, and had a high status. Sylvia was sought after by many men in the Black Star Corps. In terms of popularity, among all the officers, her popularity in the Black Star Corps was only second to Fu Ding. Sylvia walked all the way to the platform at the top of the base. This was the highest altitude of the Black Star headquarters, and it was surrounded by the starry space. When she raised her head, she could see planet Golden Gate right in front of her. It was as though there was a massive planet hanging upside down in the sky, occupying a large portion of the sky. At this moment, many officers were standing on the platform, and they all turned to look at her. Sylvia glanced around. Basically, all the core members of the army with important positions were here. Vice Captain Loggy, Logistics Manager Reynolds, Fleet Commander Haluz, Head of Culture Instructor Rosalind, and so on. There were more than 20 of them, including 15 Calamity Grade Supers. Everyone's here. How's the preparation I asked you to do? A deep male voice sounded. Sylvia looked over and saw a tall figure standing at the edge of the platform. He was wearing a special black suit made of nanomaterials, and his back was facing everyone. He was looking up at Planet Golden Gate. It was Han Xiao. According to your instructions, everything is ready. Sylvia nodded. Very good. Upon hearing that, Han Xiao turned around. His expression was calm, but there was a hint of anticipation in his eyes. Compared to 7 years ago, his appearance had not changed much, and he still looked young. However, he had lived for 7 years, and he was already a man in his 40s. The wrinkles were not carved on his face, but on his heart. Although he was still as handsome as before, his temperament had become more mature and mature. The officers present had a deep understanding of his changes. If the Han Xiao from 7 years ago was like a ferocious tiger with a threatening aura, after 7 years of settling down, his reputation had already stabilized. At this moment, the feeling that the Han Xiao gave them was like that of a majestic lion. Just looking at him was enough to make everyone other than Loggy feel pressured. Today was the opening day of version 3.0, and Han Xiao had been waiting for this day for a very long time. It's been 10 years, Han Xiao sighed in his heart. To the players, this was just a background introduction, but he had indeed lived through these 10 years. For the opening day of the new version, he had made many preparations in advance. At this moment, the officers present were there to personally report the progress of these preparations. However, they were only following Han Xiao's instructions and did not know the reason. The events of version 3.0 this time were quite different from the original storyline in Han Xiao's previous life. In the past 7 years, the secret war had become more and more intense. Due to Han Xiao's actions, Clint was not as strong as in the original storyline, and Section 0 and Bloodshed Land were not as passive as before. Both sides had entered the most intense phase in advance. The battlefield was not just Westwind, Kaya, and Chida. 2 new star systems were affected by the flames of war. The Secret War was one of the main storyline missions of version 3.0 in the Shattered Star Ring. Due to Han Xiao's participation, the Secret War was more complicated than in Han Xiao's previous life, and there were more organizations secretly participating in the war. When the players returned, the Secret War that had been modified by Han Xiao would be one of the main storyline missions of version 3.0. In the past 7 years, the business structure of the Black Star Corps had stabilized, and they had successfully gained a foothold in the various star systems. Their forces were spread all over the Colton Star Cluster, and they had more than 500 satellite bases, 300,000 battleships, more than 100 million members, and more than 10 billion assets. They were already a colossal force. With such a huge scale, it was more than enough to support more than 1 million players. Furthermore, version 3.0 was the peak period for new players, and with the good results of the second Galaxy Pro League, there would definitely be more new players in China. The Black Star Corps had more than enough ability to nurture a large number of new players. The 7 years of war had provided Han Xiao with an endless amount of experience, allowing him to reach level 211. It was indeed a little difficult for the experience level of version 2. Zero to provide for him to level up at such a late stage. The return of the players in version 3.0 was another opportunity for him to level up quickly, and Han Xiao had been waiting anxiously. He had taken out more than 100 missions in the past 7 years and accumulated a batch of mission completion cards, all for the sake of leveling up. Han Xiao's preparation in the past 7 years was equivalent to sharpening his scythe. It could be said that everything was ready, and he only lacked leaks. Version 3.0 activated. Retrieving data complete. Player forms opened. Welcome to Galaxy version 3.0. Crimson Tide. It had finally begun. In version 3.0, the strength of the players would change from quantity to quality. The difference between 1,000,000 Grade C supers and 1,000,000 Grade B supers was like heaven and earth. This version is the era where the Black Star Core will truly rise. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled, and a smile appeared on his face. He turned around and waved his hands. Send out all the spaceships. At the same time, on planet Golden Gate, due to the relocation of the Black Star Core headquarters, the Black Star Base No. 1 on planet Golden Gate had been modified into a base on the surface. There were not many people guarding the base, and it was extremely empty. All of a sudden, countless white lights flashed, and the figures of the players appeared one after another. The empty base instantly became crowded, and the quiet base suddenly became lively. Haha, we can finally go online. The new version lay. Crimson Tide? Why is the name of this version so weird? You're done for. We can't even take off our pants. Bad review. A male player was enraged. Wow, it's already the 3rd version, and the pants stripping gang is still alive. The person beside him was shocked. The pants stripping gang has always been guarding the base and has never left. Long Sky is awesome. How Tian is awesome. There are also people who were still immersed in the 2nd Galaxy Pro League that had just ended. In the base, more than 100,000 players were in high spirits, and it was as noisy as a market. Before the version update, all the players had gathered in the various bases to go offline. Base number 1 had the most players, and there were more than 100,000 of them. Madblade was the first to go online. After the end of the 2nd Galaxy Pro League, he had a good time to relax. As a professional player, he could not fall behind during the opening of the new version. Thus, all the professional players went online as soon as possible. Madblade, Hao Tian, King Admiral, Li Gu, and the others went online at base number 1 and gathered together. The habit of the professional players was to check the changes on the interface first. There are no changes to the attributes and skills, but the level cap has increased. Looks like the level cap in version 3.0 is 120, Hao Tian said with a deep voice. The faction is still there. That's great. The Black Star Core is still alive. Madblade heaved a sigh of relief, and so did the others. The Black Star Core was still around, which meant that the faction contribution points they had accumulated in the previous version would not go to waste. Their efforts were not wasted. After quickly checking their attributes, the professional players were relieved. At this time, the other players were almost done with their excitement, and they started to get down to business. The players had gone through 2 versions of the game and now had experience. When a new version was released, the most important thing was to find out what had changed in the world. Including the professional players, all the players in the base took out their communicators and opened the calendar to see how long it had been since the new version was released. When they saw the date, everyone was shocked. What the F***CK? A whole 10 years? That's way too long. Did the NPCs in the previous version forget about us? I remember that version 1.0 and version 2.0 were only about a year apart. How did it suddenly increase tenfold? So terrifying. Could it be related to the main storyline of this version? It took 10 years to form the main storyline. I remember that before the update, there was a video by Pork Bun where Black Star personally revealed the existence of the Red Empire. Pork Bun analyzed that version 3.0 was very likely related to the Red Empire. Could that be how the name Red Tide came about? A full 10 years had passed since the previous version. This discovery shocked the players completely. This was the longest time span for an update. Everyone was talking among themselves. At the same time, they looked around the base, wanting to see what had changed in the base after 10 years. Very soon, everyone noticed that something was wrong. In the previous version, this base was the headquarters of the Black Star Corps. There were many mercenary NPCs coming and going, but now it was deserted. Not a single NPC could be seen. It was as if the building was empty. Could something have happened to the Black Star Corps? Someone opened the interface of the Mercenary Alliance, only to find that the Black Star Corps' mercenary resume had disappeared. The Black Star Corps could not be found in the search engine. Then, everyone wanted to open the subprogram of the Black Star Corps, but a prompt appeared. The version is too old. Insufficient permissions. Please refresh the registration information. In the past 10 years, Philip's subprogram had been updated countless times. The player's subprogram could no longer be used. They had to obtain the authorization of the Black Star Corps and register again before they could use it. This discovery spread like wildfire, and many people's hearts were in suspense. Almost all of the Chinese players were in the Black Star Corps, and the Black Star Corps had already become their own faction. The players were eager to know what had happened to the Black Star Corps when they weren't around. Let's go out and take a look. Madblade was the most anxious. He hurriedly walked out of the base, and the professional players followed behind him. With someone taking the lead, the hundreds of thousands of players walked out of the base. When they left the base, they realized that there were no obstructions along the way. After walking out of the base, the players turned around to take a look. They realized that base number 1 had shrunk significantly, as though it had been modified. Many areas had been demolished, and it appeared to be in a state of decline. When Madblade and the others saw this, their hearts couldn't help but skip a beat. Outside the base was a street in a certain city on planet Golden Gate. The warm orange light shone on the buildings, leaving behind a dusk-like glow. The streets were filled with players, and many of them had no choice but to activate their mechanical suits and fly into the air to look for NPCs and ask for clues. Not far away, there were many pedestrians from Godora. Madblade, Hao Tian, and the others took the lead and rushed over to grab one of the pedestrians. "Hey, what are you guys doing?" The pedestrian had a frightened look on his face. "Don't be afraid. We just want to ask you some questions," Madblade hurriedly said. The pedestrian nodded his head timidly. Suddenly, he saw the Black Star logo on Madblade's mechanical suits, and his face changed. "You guys are from the Black Star Corps?" Everyone was elated. After 10 years, this person still knew about the Black Star Corps. They had a chance. Madblade hurriedly pointed at base number 1 and asked, "Yes, is that the headquarters of the Black Star Corps? If you guys are from the Black Star Corps, why are you asking me?" The pedestrian was puzzled, but he still answered honestly. "That place is no longer the headquarters of the Black Star Corps." "Then, where is the headquarters of the Black Star Corps now?" Madblade asked impatiently. The pedestrian pointed above his head and shrugged. "There isn't that it?" In the sky, Madblade, Hao Tian, and the others looked up in confusion. Their faces froze, and their mouths opened wider and wider. Gradually, more and more players looked up at the sky. It was as though they had been immobilized. Their mouths were wide open, and they looked up at the sky like tortoises. What entered the eyes of all the players was a gigantic metallic planet floating in the outer space of planet Golden Gate. It occupied half of the sky, and it looked as though it would fall to the ground at any moment. There was no need to look for it. With such a huge planet right in front of them, it was impossible to pretend that they didn't see it. This planet-sized fortress was the headquarters of the Black Star Corps. More than 100,000 players looked up at the sky, and they were all dumbfounded. In version 2.0, the headquarters of the Black Star Corps was just a base. After 10 years, the army had a planet-sized fortress that wasn't much smaller than planet Golden Gate as its headquarters. What had the Black Star Corps experienced in the past 10 years? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.